Hey everybody, this is your boy and you're listening to the Escape Podcast. Portions of this show were recorded in front of a live studio audience. Now who's ready to make love on those holla tables, baby?
One is a Grand Arena specialist from the UK. The other is a territory battle tactician from the US. Together, there are no signs of intelligent life on board. With both having played this game since launch, the one thing we are sure of is that you will be entertained. The CFH Network presents the Escape Pod Cast, a service of the Escape Pod Castaways. A weekly podcast about the mobile game Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Live from the network studios of Yavin 4, here are your hosts, Neil Andrew Eyre and Paul Anthony.
Coming up on this week's edition of the Escape Pod Cast, it happened again. 2 new ships are announced. Our content creator special is here. We talk with Thadeous from Going Nerdy and Sean Baptiste from Bethesda about the world of content creation. And we talk about the Q&A in our live 5th segment. And also anything else that is announced by the time we are live on this edition of the Escape Pod Cast.
The Escape Pod Cast News.
And welcome into this week's edition of the Escape Podcast. And oh my gosh, this is going to be a excellent episode. This is what I have been putting together for the past month. It is what I am going to call the Content Creator Special. We're going to tackle the news here in just a moment, but after that, we're going to devote pretty much the rest of the show until the bridge to talk about what you have done for a darn good while, and what I admit I just recently started doing kind of as something to help me with escaping the world of all that was going on. But we're going to talk about content creation.
Yay!
You love content creation.
You've been looking forward to this. I love content creation. I know you've been looking forward to doing this for some time, and it would have been nice to have done it last week, but I think the extra week week's definitely going to be beneficial to everybody listening.
Yeah, it's one of those special episodes. My lucky number is 37, so it's kind of fitting that it works to be the 37th episode of the Escape Pod Cast is the Content Creator Special. And we are going to be talking to Thadeous from Going Nerdy. We're going to have him on again, but we're not going to speculate. We're going to give you cold, hard facts about the perspective from a content creator. And then the coup d'etat of all of this is he's a very interesting individual. You guys will get to know him a little bit better. His name is Sean Baptiste. He works for Bethesda. And he is the influencer manager. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that later on. But Neil, we got to start off with the news, because if we don't get to the news, we won't get to the good stuff coming up here soon. It happened again. It happened again, Nev.
Oh God, not again.
It happened
really again.
Again.
So we got an event. The event had bugs. The character of said event that had bugs got stopped, and then let me guess. Said character was removed from the store again.
Yep, and then it was because the character was giving out shards when it shouldn't have given out shards, and they even no longer had it listed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've played this record a couple times now, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. It's at least the third time that this has happened. No, well, second. It's
Yeah,
the second time, but third time overall.
Second time, yeah.
It's the second time for this specific character, but third time overall.
Yeah. So let go away for a few months, come back, and hopefully we won't have the same bugs and issues and problems that we've had for previous incarnations of said events and of said character.
Well, I mean, if they just have waited the 6 months or so that they did the first time, it would have put a better taste in a lot of people's mouths that went all out for it the second time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is
Make
karma.
It rare. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, everybody knows who we're talking about, and everybody knows about it because it's been done to buggery. So what's the other news, Paul?
The other news is that speaking of an update dropped as we're recording this that they're still working on it. So as of last night from when this airs, we will be live in the last segment. Don't worry, we're not leaving you guys high and dry, but they're still working on it as of last night. We'll give you an update in the last segment. Now, that being said, Chewbacca's unique loyal friend is assisting too many times. This is a bug. They're gonna fix it. Just move on with your lives. How many of you are honestly, and I'm saying honestly, consistently using Chewbacca in your arena team? Now, I'm talking to you, gigantic whales that are having problems with a problematic bug.
Well, I've never used him in arena, so I restrict using him for territory wars and for GAC. Although he is kind of important for me in GAC because him, Han, and CLS they're one of my guaranteed undersized victories. So I hope it doesn't affect anything there.
Well, I mean, your Chewbacca is he's. It's not a GAC week. I mean. So
I know,
okay.
But
next week.
Yeah, well, hopefully they will, and hopefully it doesn't, nerf him in any way, shape, or form.
No,
we hate nerfs. We hate nerfs.
It's okay. It's okay. We don't hate nerfs. Nerfs are just not preferable. So we're getting ships in our upcoming Grand Arena Championships.
Yeah.
We're getting First Order in our Grand Arena Championships.
Yeah, I've still got my fingers crossed for some. No, I'm kind of regarding. Well, my First Order aren't that good a squad for my Pom-Pom-tastic account there. To be honest with you, my First Order aren't that amazing on any of my accounts because what I tend to do with First Order is get them good enough to be able to get my BB-8 to 7 stars, and then they kind of get left by the wayside. Don't get me wrong, I still throw the Zetas on Kylo Ren unmasked so that I can use them as a defense team, but apart from that, I don't do an awful lot to them. So I'll be interested to see how the feats get changed in next month's GAC regarding First Order, but it's probably going to be along similar lines to what they did with get X amount of wins with First Order, hold on a defensive team. So it's going to be something like that.
Yeah, check this out. Feats like Advantage First Order, you need to gain Advantage in Grand Arena 50 times. There's also a feat for using 3 First Order military troopers. And it's kind of funny they put in parentheses, basically anyone who isn't Kylo Ren.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And one for using Phasma. Yeah, okay, one for using Phasma and Fox in the same squad.
Okay.
And then there's a feat that asks you to pair First Order Stormtrooper with Finn.
What? That's just okay. You know what? I'm gonna. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The feats aren't necessary for Kyber.
They may not be necessary
nice
for Kyber, but if they give me a pretty picture and a name and a little badge, I'm gonna go after it just because it makes me happy, and that's how I play this game. I'm sorry if I'm not playing the game the same as you. You know, not you specifically, Neil, but you know what I mean. I enjoy my little.
I know you enjoy them.
I enjoy my 37 pieces of flair. Okay.
Yeah. No. I get that, and I'm just trying to figure out what type of title you would get for putting Stormtrooper, First Order Stormtrooper, and Finn together. You know, what, brothers in arms. What?
Here it is.
I mean, it's oh, go on. Then, oh, you're going to tell me?
Yeah, it's called FN2187.
Oh, right. Okay, that's how dull is that? What boring name for a title. I mean, obviously, it's hearkening to the battle, the fight. You know, the coming together of what is it? He gets the old traitor at him, and then he goes toe to toe with the First Order Stormtrooper with a lightsaber, doesn't he? Which movie was that? Was that 8 or was that 7 or 8? I can't remember. 7. It was 7.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, recalling scenes and stuff from 7 or 8 are difficult because I barely watched that movie.
You're a purist. I enjoy all the Skywalker saga. Shush.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come back to my purist thoughts when we discuss the next bit of news, which is which you're about to allude to, which is ships, isn't it?
No. There's more.
No.
There's more things. There's more things. That's not all.
More things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can also gain feats for gaining fleet arena victories with both First Order TIE fighters, the SF and the regular. And then also winning with Kylo's TIE silencer and a different feat for winning with the command shuttle.
Oh, yeah, well, that's definitely out for me because I haven't gone for any of them ships on the Bombastic account. In fact, I've been beefing up my separatists because I haven't decided which one's going to go in defense and what team's keeping for offense. Because I've got 2 decent squads. Because that's what you're going to need. You're going to need an offensive team and a defensive team. So I've got my Akbar and Mills squad, and then I was going to use my Thrawn with my Geos, and then I was going to have the TIE Fighter pilot, and I was going to have Darth Vader's TIE Advance come in with a couple of bounty hunters
But don't give away all your secrets right here, right now, okay?
Okay. Well, I mean, people don't know whether I'm going to put them on defense or offense, so yeah.
But here's the good thing is that with the fact that you have these hitting the game, they also wanted to assure us that you will not, even though they're changing the layout, they will not change a layout mid-championship. All 4 rounds will use the same layout through the entire championship, even though they may tinker with layouts later. So that was the other piece of advice. Now, yes, let's go ahead and get to these ships. And I want to start out with the Hyena Bomber, because that is the one that I'm most excited about. The Hyena Bomber is going to be a tank for Separatists. It is the second crewless ship in the game in the order that they announced these. And you can unlock it without worrying about crew, and it synergizes with the Vulture droids. Yay!
Yeah, well, I mean, true to their word, CG did say that they were going to bring some more crewless ships in, and as soon as they said that, I think everybody was thinking, well, there are plenty of, separatist crewless droid ships that they could call upon from the Clone Wars era. So, kind of obvious. I mean, we didn't know exactly what the ship was going to be, but we all kind of guessed that it was going to be Clone Wars era, didn't we?
Yes, definitely. And they talked about that in the Galactic War Report. Props to those guys for getting Top Hat. But this is what really upset me. is that in the second Q&A with CG Mandalorian and CG BS Shill, they asked the question, what is the ideal capital ship for Hyena Bomber? And the answer was redacted, redacted, redacted. We already know. Speaking of the Galactic War Report, we already know Malevolence is coming.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, I mean, Malevolence is coming, so it's going to work well with Malevolence, but it'll probably work better when they bring Newt Gunray's ship in.
Your speculation there, your absolute speculation there. But, I mean, either way, you know, we don't have enough Separatist ships to warrant a Newt Gunray, and we know Malevolence is coming. We have enough to warrant a second Jedi / Galactic Republic ship, but we don't have enough to warrant a second Separatist ship. So don't go on the high horse with the Newt Gunray ship just yet, Neil.
No, they need to pick up. They do need to pick up the speed and pick up the pace with ships, and they just need to bring the damn things in as a marquee, because these galactic chases are. I've never liked the method of bringing in the ship as a. Do you like? I mean, to be honest with you, I still prefer the marquee way regarding bringing in introducing new ships. So, or introducing anything like that, because it's a minor thing. It's nothing major. But it is a necessity, obviously. We do need these extra ships. But I would have preferred to have seen it as a marquee, and then, obviously drop it on a node so that we can farm it at a later date.
Well, I like the fact that they reward you for playing in a certain area. Now, ships stunk when it was, pretty much mandatory that you had to do ships to get the Ebon Hawk and the Palpmobile. But in my opinion, I think that putting it on a Cantina node, which will A, count for tickets, and B, you can farm relics at the same time as this. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Well, this is why we every now and then we come across these little things that we disagree with, and we have a bit of banter and we have a disagreement, and then we decide that I'm right.
It's okay that you're wrong. You're right.
I was quoting Nigel Clough. Very famous English football manager. So, but yeah, no, I think it's good that they've brought the ship in. Even if we disagree with how they're bringing it in, we can both agree that it's definitely a welcome entry to ships.
That's absolutely true. Now, we also have another ship that we have is going to be the Battle B Y-Wing. It is also a tank, and ironically, it's a Galactic Republic ship.
I know, this one bugs. This one's just, I'm not happy with this one at all. I think they've done a great injustice to Star Wars IP on this one. It should have been the iconic Y-Wing. It should have been the iconic Y-Wing from the original trilogy, and it should have had a pilot in it. And the pilot should have been Kian Farlander, who was the only Y-Wing pilot, mind you, the only Y-Wing pilot to survive the first battle against the original Death Star. And the reason why he did it was because he was Force sensitive. And, he ended up getting trained as a Jedi by Luke Skywalker. CG had a big opportunity to give us some good, solid nostalgia, because we haven't had any nostalgic characters in the game for a while. And I think that, another guy in an orange jumpsuit, another big / wedge type character, with an iconic Y-Wing. I think it would have been great. And, the Galactic Republic ships have been getting way too much love.
Wait, back up here. A Force-sensitive Oh, you're talking Legends again, aren't you, Nev?
No, I'm not. No. He was original. He's canon. but the additional stories about him then went into the extended universe. Kian Farlander was the pilot of the only surviving Y-wing during the Battle of Yavin. So we
see him,
but
we see him in the movies.
You probably see him. He's probably one of the background actors He's probably one of the background actors in the original Episode 4 movie somewhere in one of the scenes. You just don't get him mentioned. He's not legend. He's canon.
Then he's legend. And I'm just going to point out that when you open up this app now, it says Disney on it. So they're not going to go into the Legends database anymore. They're only doing new canon.
Yeah, but anything that was in that movie is classed as canon. And he was in that movie.
They didn't name him. You probably cannot find somebody in the credits with that name. So therefore, as much as you want to fight for him, he's not canon.
Well, no, he would have been one of the. He wouldn't have been Kian Farlander. He would have been. Well, he wouldn't have been one of the Reds because the Reds are the X-wings. He would have been. One of the Golds.
Gold, yeah.
One of the yellow. He would have been one of the Golds. So he'd have been like Gold 1 or Gold 2 or Gold 3 or something like that. So but still,
he wasn't named Kian Farlander.
But he wasn't. I know he wasn't named Kian Farlander, but I still think that they missed a trick. It would have been nice to have had, it would have been nice and nostalgic to have, the old school Y-wing in there. Because obviously, at some point in the not too distant future, hopefully they'll throw A-wings and they'll throw the B-wings in there as well. But yeah, no, if you're not going to have, as an iconic a pilot for that in the Y-wing, then just get rid of all pilots for all ships.
All right. Well, that actually kind of leads me into the fact that, we're getting 2 pilotless ships, which means that their GP is not going to be pumped up by a pilot. And that's starting to be, if you will, to me, worrisome. So I'm thinking, and tell me if I'm off base here, Nev. I'm thinking that what we should do is get ships 3.0 and scrap all the pilots and just have ship. Wait, really? Okay, first we're disagreeing, now we're agreeing.
Oh yeah, no. I've had this discussion with I had this discussion with many people back at the beginning of the year. I threw out a video back in February, I think it was, where I talked about 15 ships that I'd like to see come into the game, and this was one of the ships I predicted would come in by 2019. And I said, the next iteration of ships should include not just a bunch of them. We need a whole host of new ships coming in, but to make it easier for them to introduce more ships into the game, just make them shipless. Remove all of the ships. And I do remember having a really long, in-depth conversation with a friend and guildmate and user called Darth Mufasa. And, we talked about the logistics and the problems that it would cause and the complaints, legitimate complaints, because there's a lot of people out there that will have spent a lot of resources on characters specifically for a ship. And if you were to remove that pilot from the ship, they'll be like, well, hang on a minute, I spent a lot of money and, a lot of equipment, buffing this character to make their ship better. So there would be some very, very real issues, both monetary and logistical, to doing something like that. But I think if they, if they manage it correctly, if they do manage it correctly and they come up with a good method for compensating people that have as long as they come up with a good way to compensate people for certain characters, for certain ships. So it's like, hey, I totally get you would not have put ability mats on that character. You know, we're talking about characters that have a primary use as pilots in fleet, and that's it. So we're talking Bistan. You know, Bistan. Where else would Bistan be used in the game? Where else would the
light side territory battles?
Huh?
Light side territory battles.
Yeah, but nobody does light side territory battles now. And
yes, they do. Stop! Hey, Mr. New Account Specialist, stop thinking about new accounts that can't reach it. Hello.
Yeah. No. That's a valid one. But the of the 5 Rogue Squadron guys that I was going for, I wasn't going for him. He's not one of the ones I was farming for. Obviously, the Cassian's U-Wing one. You've got 3 characters there. And then you've got a couple of easy farms from the event stores. Those would be the 5 that I would go for just for the Hoth territory battle. But you know, I would still. There are characters. I do believe that there are characters that people will have leveled up and modded and zated and used valuable resources on just for ships.
But what are they going to do to the GP? What are they going to do to the GP level that you get? So you've invested these to also pump up GP for your territory battles. So where do they put the GP, and where do they find the common ground for those that may have fully activated everything but didn't Relic 7 the pilots? But some people have. You know, you're taking away GP. It's a fun. Yeah, I could say this word. It's a fuster cluck.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a potential it's a potential hornet's nest of issues. It really is. But if they're going to keep introducing these pilotless ships into the game with that aren't really going to compete with ships that have pilots, well then what's the point in putting more and more and more pilotless ships in if they are not going to be able to compete on an even playing field with ships that do have crew? You need to even it out one way or the other. You either need to stop bringing in pilotless ships, or you need to even out the ones that do have crew in them by 3.0ing ships, and completely reworking the entire thing. But you would be able to bring in you'd be able to bring in a lot more ships if you don't have to worry about a crew. You could bring in a lot more ships.
I'm kind of realizing, ships. I don't remember exactly which came first, mods or ships. But I'll tell you this: I think it was mods. But ships with characters was just mods for ships, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you remove that, then it creates an even playing field. And if you had ships with no crew, you're not having to worry about mods. So it would be like Squad Arena before mods. Fleet Arena would literally be like Squad Arena before mods. So you've got
that became
all of these different.
Well, that became all RNG Fest. So do you want RNG Fest in ships while you've got mods in the regular arena /GAC? And then all of a sudden RNG becomes, I've seen your show. You complain to the RNG gods all the time about getting screwed over.
They smite me so much, but you've got to remember that yes, back then before mods, a lot of the time, sometimes battles would go the way depending on what you had. If you had sacrificed your second child to the RNG gods, or if you had paid penance to RNGs, there are a lot more characters now, and if they brought in a lot more ships then yes, it would be RNG dependent, but there would be so many combinations of ships and capital ships that you could deploy in the arena that could counter, potential bad RNG situations. So, but like, this is, us just speculating and chewing the fat and, just going over the potential pitfalls of, and solutions and issues regarding the introduction of at the end of the day, it's just 2 more crewless ships. But 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. Pretty soon you've got, a dozen to 20 crewless ships in the game, and they're all kind of useless because cruise ships are faster, stronger, and more powerful. And people are like, great, I've blown a load of money on these crewless ships, and they're useless.
All right. Once again, we agree to disagree, and
exactly.
But with that being said, let's go ahead and just be honest with the listeners here, really quick. We recorded about 2 hours ago. We recorded a amazing interview with Sean Baptiste. Literally, this interview went 2 segments because it was so engaging, engrossing. Would those be the right words?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So this is segment 1, not just of 4 this week, but of 5. This show is going to run a little bit long, guys. Sorry, not sorry on this one. Coming up after the break, we have Going Nerdy. And he is going, and this is the beginning, after we get back from the break, this is the beginning of the content creator special. We're not going to speculate with Thaddeus. Instead, we're going to talk about being a content creator with Thaddeus. Stay tuned right here on the Escape Pod Cast.
The Escape Pod Cast with Paul Anthony and Neil Andrew Ware.
Micaeus Modding Mayhem is the premier remodding service for the game that we all love, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. With some of the most affordable rates in the industry, Micaeus will rebuild your roster from top to bottom and give you consultation on where to go from there. Micaeus has a 100% satisfaction guarantee and lots of useful additional services, including a full cleanup of your mods, loadout pages, PvP plans, and more. Contact Micaeus today on Discord at all lowercase Micaeus number 0127. That's MIKAYAS number 0127, or at micaeusmods@gmail.com. Micaeus Modding Mayhem, the official remodding service of the Escape Pod Cast.
Did you know that if you signed up to become a Patreon, you could get tons of rewards? Force Ghost Scotty could do a roster review for you. Neil Andrew Ware could share Grand Arena tactics. Or Paul could even help you get maximum stars in Geonosis Territory Battle. And you even get access into the after show. Sound good? Sign up to be a Patreon today. For as little as $2 a month, you could unlock a ton of potential content and also get closer to the hosts. Head to patreon.com/the Escape Pod to sign up.
And now time for something completely shameless.
This is your favorite YouTuber's favorite Greek-American Swuggo YouTuber from the greater New York City area, whose name has 8 letters, beginning with an H and ending with an X. Wanna guess who, TC14? Come on, guess.
Horsebox.
Try again.
Poliobox.
Seriously?
Horsepex.
You know what? Just forget it. I was trying to get you to say Hellenix, you dumb droid. Anyway, welcome back to the Escape Pod Cast. Take it away, boys. I have a droid to disassemble.
Oh, dear.
The Escape Pod Cast.
This is Heinzie from Harpoons and Beer, and you're listening to the Escape Pod Cast Content Creation Special.
And welcome into this week's edition of, well, actually, this isn't an incoming transmission. This is a special episode. This is the Escape Pod Cast for content creators, not kids. Not what you used to do, Nev.
No.
This is Escape Podcast for content creators because we have, and as I said just before the break, we have an excellent interview with Sean Baptiste of Bethesda Softworks coming up. But, I got Bethesda's influencer manager to come talk to us. He's a good friend of mine, but mostly for the reason that I wanted to give aspiring content creators a glimpse into what the companies are looking for. But before we get to that, let's talk to somebody who, you know him as the theocracy of theory. You know him as the speculation king of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. But we're not going to talk Galaxy of Heroes this time, Thad. Don't do that to me. I want to talk about content creation. What's going on, brother?
Oh, thanks for having me. And I love the fact that you call me the theocracy of thought or theory. I think that is the coolest thing that has ever been ascribed to me in my entire life.
I mean, Paul knows his his ringmaster entries, doesn't he?
He does.
Imagine you're coming into the ring and you're being introduced to the ring. That's what Paul's done. Paul's introducing you to the ring.
And I love it. I absolutely love it.
So, Nev, this is the second time that I've been complimented on my intros.
Well, yeah, but you've been around them. You've been around those ring masters. You've listened to it. You've heard it. So it's kind of that kind of second nature to you. Introductions are something that you are good at because you know them.
I'm creating content. I'm creating the content of introducing people.
Exactly. We'll spread the word and we'll have content creators from across all platforms. It's like, I've heard that you're good at introducing people. Can you introduce some guests for my show?
I'll do it. I'll absolutely do it. In fact, I'm talking to some content creators for another game. That I said, do you want content? I'll give you some produced content, just because I enjoy it. So one of them's a Patreon of our show. So absolutely, I'm going to support our listeners and all that. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Content creation, period, is the reason that I wanted to bring Thadeous on. Now, Thadeous. So I know back in our first episode that I think you were our first guest, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great honor.
So, and it's a great honor to have you. It's kind of funny because Nev just reminded me while we were in between breaks, 37 is my lucky number. And this is episode 37 of the show. And then it's also day 37 of the horror account. So
can I add one more thing to you?
Yeah, sure.
I'm 37.
Well, my wife is 37, so I mean it all works out.
It does.
So there's some heavy numerology going on here,
Oh yeah. Where's a Mayan calendar when you need one?
It's over, remember? It ended.
That's true, I guess.
So anyway, the whole thing is I wanted to pick the brain of a content creator, and you didn't start doing content creation with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. You were creating content of a different type, if I recall correctly. Am I right?
Yeah, I actually worked for a company that was having me do training videos, and I was doing these really silly videos because my audience was, like 18 to 23-year-olds. And, it was a ton of fun. But one of the guys that I worked with was like, hey, we've got this mobile game that we're playing, which shall go nameless. And, a lot of the guys that are creating the content for this, they don't excite us. And your videos are fun to watch. So why don't have you ever thought about making videos for this unnamed mobile game? And I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. And It just kind of worked for me. It's been something that I've done for the last 3.5 years, I believe. I think 4 years will be in February. So, I've tried to branch out. My Star Wars videos don't typically do as well as that mobile game video, but like I love. So here's the thing, okay? And I've got to say this. Growing up, I was never the kid who was like, I want to be a doctor or I want to be a lawyer or whatever. I was the kid that was like, I don't have any goals and or ambition. I don't know what to do. And so when I went to college, they're like, so what do you want to study? I was like, I don't know. Just give me a degree of some kind. And so I went into English. And so English went into like creative writing. And so all of that stuff. But here's the thing. Like I have always wanted to be paid to talk about movies and books. And like this is essentially that. I have an opportunity to share my love for a book or a movie or a mobile game or whatever and just put it out there. So once I found out, I'm like, hey, people are okay with listening to me talk for whatever reason, I was like, I'm going to continue to do this because it's awesome. And that's yes, a very long-winded way. Content creation is like wonderful. So I love it.
You've done content creation for more than just the game that shall remain nameless.
Yes. The game that shall not be named.
It's just like kind of pretty much like the event that should not be named that we were talking about earlier. No. In our first segment, it happened again. Did you know that it happened?
I know. I did.
I
did, and they're. Oh my gosh! Anyways, it's the Voldemort of mobile games.
Only for this episode. But I'm going through. You've done a video game review of Missile Dude RPG.
Oh my gosh. I love that game.
You've done Fantasy Movie League. You were telling me about Fantasy Movie League. And
such a good...
yes. All this stuff. You used to do Battle of the Cinema where, Atomic Blonde versus the Dark Tower and the Vault. You have more than just this, just about this game. And so is it truly the passion, and is the passion still there, if you will, to do more than just Star Wars? What is the next thing that's coming up for Going Nerdy, and how do you think that you can do this in content creation?
Oh man, you were hitting on a nerve that has been pinched for the last year, I think. I am the type of person who dreams big. In fact, my oldest daughter, one day years ago, when she was really young, got a Happy Meal toy. There was a heart, a pink heart, and it said "Dream Big." And she gave it to me. She's like, "Here, Dad, follow your dreams." And I was like, "Oh, that is the most adorable thing." And it was right around the time that I was starting the channel, and like. It was awesome because my daughter gave me her heart, and I'm like, oh, metaphor, wonderful. And then 2, it was like giving me permission to follow what it is that I want. And so that's what I've started to do and branch back into is film reviews and film theories. I have a theory for the Star Wars Episode 9, which is one that's kicked around a little bit, but it's, I don't know, something that I'm leaning very heavily into, that'll be launched here in the next couple of days. And then I reached out to the publishers over at Penguin Random House. And I said, hey, I love Star Wars. And I love I love your audiobooks, but I would love to be able to get my hands on a book before it launched so that I could review it. And they originally they were like, no, well, we don't have any of the latest one. I was like, all right, that's fine. And so I emailed them back recently. I was like, hey, Resistance Rising is coming out. Do you guys have any copies of that you want reviewed? And they were like, yeah, what's your address? And I was like, really? And so right now, I'm in, like, literally the book is upstairs. It's a 300-page book, and I'm halfway through. I've only had it for a day, but I've barely put it down, and it's awesome.
Okay,
but
before you go in, you're saying it's awesome. Are you allowed to say anything else? Is it out yet?
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh no, it is not out yet.
Okay.
And I'm not there are reviews for the book out, like where people who got the book early have reviewed it. I'm not going to say anything just yet, okay? I am going to do what I'm trying to do is a kind of a live tweet version of my book review.
Okay.
But instead of live tweeting, I'm just recording myself reacting to like moments in the book, you know? So it's really cool.
So we'll
see if it works out or not.
You're creating content while you're reading this book.
Absolutely.
So are we going to be seeing this on your channel?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. And like, here's the thing. And last time you kind of pimped me, and I thought it was awesome. And you're like, hey, you go check out Going Nerdy's latest video. He has, he has a link where you can get 2 free Audible books. In my real world life, am an English teacher. I teach creative writing and I teach journalism. And right now, my journalism class is focused entirely on teaching kids how to blog, how to write about something that they love to talk about. And I love to talk about Star Wars. And it's awesome. To me, it's like the greatest thing. It connects all forms of life, whether you're a certain political party or, apolitical, whether you're whatever, it's all things connected. And I love it. And so, yes, you will actually see before the weekend is out, a book review, and then probably on Monday, a spoiler review of the book. And that will just be my reaction to like what's going on. Or what happens in the
When does the book come out?
Tuesday, November 5th? Wait, no, that's not Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday, November 5th.
Remember.
Okay.
Of November.
So
that's true.
I'll tell you this.
That's true.
I don't think I don't think you should put up the spoiler review until 2 days after. Yeah, 2 days after. So go 11/7.
All right. I can do that. That's probably a smart move, anyways. Like, but here's the thing, and when it comes to content, there's a few pieces of advice that everyone needs to follow.
Yeah, I was going to say, if somebody comes up to you, Mr. Thaddeus, I want to be a YouTube star too. What should I do?
You should find something that you love to do. I cut the cord on cable a couple of years ago, and I just watch YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, all of that stuff, right? But
preach, brother.
I was watching a guy unbox Amazon Returns for 30 minutes last night, and it wasn't anything spectacular, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's absolutely fascinating. All right. And then I saw another guy who built an automatic longbow, which sounds weird, like an archery bow. And it had like a clip where they could just keep firing over and over and over again. And he had synced up with another channel who kind of challenged him to create it. And what's funny about that is essentially it's this person, and both of these channels that I was watching, I'd never seen before, but both of them had tens of thousands, and I think probably over 50,000 each subscribers. And the view, like the one video that I was watching had over like 30,000 views, and the other one had like almost 1 million. And here it is, these people who were just following what it is that they're passionate about, talking what they're passionate about, and people are interested. So if you find something that you're passionate about, something that you can talk about with enthusiasm, like and even if you're not as like super excited, like again, I said this in our earlier take, when it comes to content creation, I am like an ADHD person who's on speed, who just chugged a 12-pack of Rockstars, which, in all fairness, is kind of like me without the speed and 12-pack of Rockstars. I have had my fair share of energy drinks today. But like the idea is, if you can find something that you're excited about, people will hear that excitement in your voice and they're like, this is interesting to this person. I'm going to find out why. And so that, first and foremost, whatever it is you're excited about, follow it. If your passion is taxes, for whatever reason, first off, if your passion is taxes, you're a weird person. But if it is, there are other people out there who have a passion for taxes. And do it, man. Just do it. Jump in, both feet head first, and just do it. Get started. And they will come. Sorry, that's
no. Keep no. Let the creative juices flow, Thaddeus. So
okay. If
you've talked. So
go ahead.
So that's the first point. So once a person has come up with, what they like, so they've decided to themselves, right? Okay, this is what I like. This is what I love. What's their next step? So as you said, they've come to you and they've said, what do I do? What advice would you give to me to be a content creator? And you've said, step one, find something you love. So what would be their next step?
Step 2 is to start immediately. Don't second guess yourself. So here's the thing that I kind of learned the hard way. Your first few videos, few podcasts, and yours were different because you guys had all the experience in the past. You knew what you were doing. You were able to jump in and, with both feet, and you didn't have to go head first because you already knew what you were doing.
Yeah, I was sitting here for a second going feet and head. That's a weird position. But no, if you listen to... You can on the I don't know if it's on the YouTube channel, but if you are a podcast subscriber, you can go all the way back to our first episode that was recorded entirely off of Discord. Didn't have the production value that it has now. There's so many flubs in that. So yeah. Our first episode kind of sucked until we got, if you listen to some people, it still sucks. But, it all comes down to the fact. What do you got?
I got. If you're talking about how crap, check. Mine was me playing the game, recording my voice on a tablet, and then I just uploaded it onto my channel. So my first episode of me, let me just see. Obviously it was the game, and I decided that, it was something that hadn't been done before. I was a fan of Warriors, and I was watching him do his content, and I thought, hey, what somebody should do is take the pillar system and do a day by day from a brand new account, seeing how it worked. And that was exactly what I did. So my first video is an hour long, and it is literally me playing the game from the very beginning, talking. There's no camera or anything. I didn't turn that. I was camera shy. In the beginning, I was camera shy, but it's like, this is something that I really want to do, and it needs to be done because nobody else is doing it. And how do we know if the pillar system works if there isn't a daily record of someone doing it? So that's what I did, and I spawned a following. I mean, you go back and look at it now, and it's got like over 300 views. But my first 10 videos were all in single digits. They were all, and I did not care.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's, and you shouldn't, Your first series of videos, they're going to be bad, but don't let that discourage you. I remember watching the very first view of my very first video, and the first thought that I had, and I was right about it, was, "Oh, my mom finally logged on and saw my video," and she did. She had no idea what the hell I was talking about, but she's like, "Oh, baby, you did such a good job," and like the thing about it is, you will find your stride, but you will never find your stride if you never start. And people are afraid to start. And I understand it. There's a fear of putting yourself out there. People comment, they still comment, they're like, "Thaddeus, your channel is stupid." I'm like, I know. I get it, man. I make dumb statements and dumb mistakes all the time. But you know what? I'm at a point where it's like, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to put myself out there. And if I'm right, great. If I can help someone, wonderful. I hope I can help someone. But if I can't, at least I'm having fun doing it.
You'll get to find out that as you get older, because I found out today that I'm older than you. You'll get to find out that as you get older,
yes,
you care less.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
I live by it. It's brilliant.
It's wonderful.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If it's someone I care about, then I care. I care about the thoughts and the feelings of people that I also care about. But people I don't know, it's like no. As Paul said, as you get older, you care less. But that brings me on to so we've gone through one and we've gone through two. What would you say is so they've picked their subject material, they've started doing it. What should they be doing as they progress as a content creator?
So that is a good. So really, the best way to progress, and I say the best way. There is no wrong way to progress, right? Whatever you do, as long as you're moving forward, right? As long as more people are seeing your next video than saw your last, or are subscribing, as long as people are still engaging with you, then you've got a good start. One of the important things is look at your competition. Look at what people are doing, look at how people are doing it, and say, how can I do that, but in my own style, right? If you look at any mobile game video, for any game, I mean, if you look at Fortnite, if you look at PUBG, if you look at the game that shall not be named, really, they're all the same. The content that Mobile Gamer puts out is very similar to the content that Arnold puts out. It's very similar to the content Warrior and Cubs fan Han put out, and this similar to the content that I put out, with some major exceptions. And those major exceptions really come down to the individual content creator. People don't go to hear the same thing over and over and over again. They go to hear the perspective of that one person. Right? They go to hear what Mobile Gamer thinks, what Warrior thinks, because each one has their own perspective. Each one is unique and has an opinion that is their own. And the most important, I mean, they're doing things that are similar, yes. And find those similarities that you can then adapt and do to yourself or do for your own channel, right? If it's live,
here's one thing that I'm gonna chime in, and it's something that I need to do a lot. I don't watch them. I watch them to understand mechanics, but don't don't pull in everything they say and then regurgitate it. You do need to have your own
spin,
your own opinion on it. And yeah, your own spin. But here's the thing that happens for me, and that's I don't listen or I don't watch any of those videos before I go on, because I don't want to be influenced. And in the back of my mind, I'm all of a sudden spouting the same thing that Cubs has said, or that you've said. Yeah. I try my best to not be influenced because I want to give the listening audience my own fresh take.
True. So then let me put a caveat on that. I agree. I 100% agree that you need to be doing you however you do it, right? If you like something that everyone else hates, then embrace that. But one of the things that I mean by that, by seeing what they're doing and then not necessarily regurgitate it, but imitate it. What I mean by that is simply there are techniques. There are, I don't want to say software. That's getting too. There's ways to produce a video, technically, that are going to be more appealing. So if you're doing a straight like video game, no music, no voiceover, nothing, and it's just the game, that's going to be very boring if it's just silent. And so what you'll see is when people do that, if you look at like Skelterix, he has walkthroughs where he doesn't generally go on camera, but he has walkthroughs that are very good. And those walkthroughs are always set to music, right? Background music is very important. And so what you'll notice with a lot of those creators is they've found that if you have background music and you're just playing a video and you have words on the screen, then people are more likely to stay entertained than if it's just a video with no music, right? And so
clacky clack of controller or something,
Exactly. Yeah. And so what I mean by that is see what people are doing with the type of video you're trying to produce, but still make it your own, right? I've learned that as much as I love to sing, I can't sing like Cubs fan Han. And so the music videos that I've tried to put out, and I've tried to put out like 3 of them, and they've all been terrible. Like I've rewritten like 3 songs about Hondo Onaka that are they're so embarrassing that I refuse to put them out. But I decided
I need to break into your computer and release these to the public.
Maybe I'll accidentally let them slip. It'll be my form of like a sex tape or something. But here's the thing though. I thought to myself, I still want to do a music video. I think they're fun. And so during the whole Malik thing, I put out a video.
Oh, you just said the forbidden word.
Oh, sorry. Am I going to get hit with ping pong balls now? I mean,
no.
I feel like if I was on TV.
No,
it's like you can't do that.
Your house.
Sorry. The event that shall not be named. I put out a video that was in the style of like Sarah McLachlan talking about those dogs. I mean, I don't know if Nev, if you've seen these, but in the US, they're huge, where it's like you've got these like really sad looking dogs in this music. It's like, hey, if you don't,
yeah, I know Sarah McLachlan. She's like does really depressing music. It's a bit like it's a bit like the 21st century version of Alanis Morissette.
Exactly. And so the idea is that I put these videos and I said, hey, CG, we understand mistakes were made, but don't give us back our shards. Do the right thing, And I set it to that same, sad music. I even periodically put a sad looking dog. That's like the closest thing that I can get to a music video, but it was fun. It took me way longer than it should, but it was fun.
You've got to do the fun stuff. Yes, without a doubt. You can do Bohemian Rhapsody with me. I've got a Star Wars. I've got a game that shall not be named version of Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
All right,
and it's got stuff in there. Basically, I wrote that. I did the parody of that after Relics came out.
Oh, okay, I get. All right.
And you still need to do It'll Always Be Canon to Me by Billy Joel.
Yeah, I still need to do a Billy Joel parody as well. It'll Always Be Canon to Me. Yeah, I do still need to do that. I'll do that one next week.
And another one is I do still owe everyone Slice Slice Baby, the mod song. That is coming. I am working on that. You laugh, Thaddeus, but you want to know something? It's because of your server that song was written. Run DMP. He was like, oh, we really need to make that song happen, and he and I wrote it together. I just got to finalize the lyrics and get that boy down from Minnesota down here, because he's got to be the slice baby guy, you know.
Bum, 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 bum.
You know what we're doing right now segues into a good closing, actually, because one of the things that every content creator should also be looking to do is find other content creators that love the same thing you love and do collaborations.
Absolutely. So here, I got to tell you this, okay? I love Cubs Fan Hon. I don't watch his videos as much as I used to. I just don't have the time. I mean, it's so hard to stay up to date with so much stuff and follow everyone. Cubs Fan Hon was the first collaboration that I ever did. And he reached out to me before he had a channel. And he's like, I want to do what you're doing. Can we collaborate? I'm like, yes, that sounds like fun. He and I actually did a I don't know what you would, I forgot what we called it. But we did a bi-weekly, not live. Well, no, it was a live stream where we just talked. And it only lasted for like 4 weeks or a month or something like that, which 4 weeks is roughly a month anyways. But if
and bi-weekly means you had 2 shows.
Okay, so maybe we had more. I can't remember. It didn't go on for very long. Maybe a quarter. Maybe we had like 4 or 5 shows. Anyways, but one of the things that Cubs Fan Hon has done very successfully is he has collaborated with other people in the community. And if you see his channel, the growth of his channel, it's explosive. Like it is awesome to see and do. And I am incredibly like I don't want to say proud's the wrong word, because it comes off like I helped him. I did that, right? But I mean it's awesome to see, you know. And he went from
you can be proud.
I am proud.
Can be proud of. Yeah, you could be proud, because I could be proud of the fact that the Houston Astros made it to the World Series. That's not. Yeah, exactly. You know, maybe they didn't win it, but darn it, I'm proud that they won the American League Championship Series. And that, you know, so it's okay to be proud of someone that you are not, because you can be proud for them.
Exactly.
You're proud for Cubs.
Yeah, and like now that he's branching into other games, like I am a little jealous that he's doing Battlefront. I need to get my desktop computer up and running, because there's no way I could stream Battlefront 2 from my laptop. They're just terrible. But like it's so cool. Like it's so awesome to see that he's branching out into this stuff. And I'm like, that's amazing. And like collaboration is the one thing, is one of the things that he has done incredibly well. And like he has collabed with like as many people as he can. And I mean, even if you look at like Mobile Gamer and Arnold, they collab with each other. They collab with other people. It's not a, you know, one and done kind of a thing. Get your name out there, you know? Some of my first collaboration videos were with like Xylo Takedown, like years ago, before he even had a channel. And now he has a channel, and now he's over 1,000, right? He's able to monetize now, I believe.
Yeah, he's in the 1K club now. Yeah,
yeah, and that's awesome. That's so cool to see that he's been able to go from like no channel to making money off it. And I think that's great. Right. I think I'll end with this because I could talk more than your friend from Bethesda. But here's the thing. When it comes to other people, be happy for them, because this world's so full of like hate and anger. And if you carry that around with you, it'll destroy you. But if you see someone's success, be happy for them and let them know. Be like, hey, man, that's awesome. You've done great. I'm proud of you. Don't be condescending, of course, but No,
that's a perfect way to put it, because it's all about supporting your fellow content creator. You will not reach the top of the mountain alone. I guarantee that. I absolutely guarantee that. Thaddeus, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to have you on more often. You're one of our favorite guests, and we will certainly, if you ever want us to collab with you, we'd be more than happy to come on.
So I think that I might do that. If I would love to pick your brains about episode 9.
Yeah, that's for Paul. That's for Paul. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a person whose brains you want to pick for the episodes 7, 8, or whatever's going to be in 9. Although you could definitely collab with me on The Mandalorian, because that looks kick ass and the trailer was the bomb.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but so Nev, this is what we'll do.
Hang on. Nev, I just want to point out that is also Disney canon.
Yeah, but that is, I don't care. That's fan fiction the way it's supposed to be done. Hey, look, I may be very critical of Disney, but when they do something right, I am going to give the credit where the credit is due. And if they do a good job with The Mandalorian, I will praise them to high heaven for it.
All right, Thaddeus, what you got for us?
Okay, so after The Mandalorian, gentlemen, I would like to have you both come on my show and talk about what your thoughts were. First episode 1
First
breakdown.
Episode
what
review.
are you thinking?
Yes, definitely. 100% on board for that. That would be awesome.
All right, sounds good. It is a date.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you collaborate. Coming up after this break is the Escape Pod Cast for Kids and Story Time with the Llama. But after that is Sean Baptiste, the influencer manager of Bethesda Softworks, with a 2-part interview that you certainly don't want to miss. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Escape Pod Cast.
The Escape Pod Cast with Paul Anthony and Neil Andrew Ware.
Micaeus Modding Mayhem is the premier remodding service for the game that we all love, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. With some of the most affordable rates in the industry, Micaeus will rebuild your roster from top to bottom and give you consultation on where to go from there. Micaeus has a 100% satisfaction guarantee and lots of useful additional services, including a full cleanup of your mods, loadout pages, PvP plans, and more. Contact Micaeus today on Discord at all lowercase Micaeus number 0127. That's MIKAYAS number 0127. Or at micaeusmods@gmail.com. Micaeus Modding Mayhem, the official remodding service of the Escape Pod Cast.
This is Red 5 from 1/4 Portion, and you're listening to the Escape Pod Cast Content Creator Special.
Back to school. The Escape Pod Cast for Kids. It's really cool.
Welcome back, Escape Padawans, to Storytime with the Llama and the Escape Pod Cast for Kids. In honor of Content Creator Week here in the Escape Pod, Paul asked me to share some advice on utilizing videos created for the game, as well as sharing some of my favorite content creators in the SWGOH universe. When I started this game 2 years ago, I was like most other brand new players. bumbling around trying to collect my favorite Star Wars characters and putting them in squads without a care in the world in regards to how they work together. Then I joined a guild and was introduced to an entire library of extremely helpful YouTube guides and tips on how to move forward with my account. Videos from creators like Warrior, Cubs Fan Han, and McMole fueled my growth and helped make my account what it is today. One great video I think should be on every early player's watch list is absolutely Warrior's Pillar System. It will help you get off to a great start in regards to farming characters. If mods have you stumped, stop by and check out my boy Biscuit Weasel's channel and his mod series. It is a great resource for all things mod related. Last but not least, if you're looking for some walkthrough videos on different legendary events, plus other fun content, look no further than CFH Network's very own Cubs Fan Han. His videos are in-depth and he does an excellent job of explaining step by step exactly what you need to do in order to get through the event. Now, there are so many awesome content creators for this game. However, the ones that are on my personal watch list are number 1, Going Nerdy. I love his speculation videos, they're fantastic. Number 2, Urzatron is always extremely entertaining, especially during his live streams. Last, but certainly not least, I'm hooked on Neil's The Horde series. I've been watching every single day, and it's been very cool to see his progress. That's all for this week. Tune in next week for more story time with the Llama on the Escape Pod Cast for Kids.
Did you know that if you signed up to become a Patreon, you could get tons of rewards? Force Ghost Scotty could do a roster review for you. Neil Andrew Air could share Grand Arena tactics. Or Paul could even help you get maximum stars in Geonosis Territory Battle. And you even get access into the after show. Sound good? Sign up to be a Patreon today. For as little as $2 a month, you could unlock a ton of potential content and also get closer to the hosts. Head to patreon.com/The Escape Pod to sign up.
Receiving incoming transmission. Receiving incoming transmission. Receiving incoming transmission.
And welcome into this week's edition of the Escape Podcast Incoming Transmission. And our guest this week is an influencer manager with Bethesda. His game credits include Karaoke Revolution and many of the Rock Band franchise games from his time with Harmonix. Many Bethesda games that we know and love to this day, including Doom 3, the Wolfenstein titles, and my personal favorite game outside of this game, as you guys know, Fallout 76, and more. He created a game of his own called Let's Quip, which is a game that causes you to have to defend your position on why your take is better than your opponent's. And he has been an inspiration to me personally with his story of perseverance, determination to do something that he loves, and dealing with the everyday. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm welcome to the Escape Pod, my friend Sean Baptiste. Sean,
wow!
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Wow, that intro is incredible. I feel like I'm getting a Lifetime Achievement Award or something. This is great.
Oh, we love blowing smoke up. We love blowing smoke up people's when we're introducing them. It's because we get such awesome guests on. People, lovely, that's wonderful great. People like to come on the show, and Paul is, the master of the giving the accolades to our guests, without a doubt.
It's really good. That's. I'm gonna sleep well on that one. I feel very accomplished.
Well, you certainly are, and we'll get into. We will certainly get into your kind of your journey here in a little bit. So I introduced you as Bethesda's influencer manager. This is the content creator special. We wanted to take a break from talking about the game itself because there's a lot of people that come in our server that are like, hey, I made this video about this game. and can I share it? And I'm like, absolutely. You listen to me share my podcast about a game, I'll absolutely let you do that. And so we touch base with a lot of people that want to be content creators. So for people who are looking to be content creators and they're wondering what an influencer manager is, what do you do?
Oh God, I wish I knew. No, so I've been doing this for a long time, like working with content creators. Even when I was just doing more straight PR or doing straight marketing, I still worked a lot with influencers since probably 2011, as far as working with specifically video content creators, Twitch and YouTube, mostly. And so what I do is largely I facilitate. I try to find people who I think would have a good time with whatever games I'm working on at the time, who I think will make content that won't bore me. Because there's a lot of people who just, they'll just do the basic sort of stuff and they'll put it out there. And some of them are even very, very popular, and that's fine. But for me, the way I see Twitch, YouTube, and all of these things is this really, and Mixer, everything, it's such an interesting time. Like I've said this before in the past, is when I was a kid, I could have been watching like Mr. Rogers, and I could have been like, hi, Mr. Rogers. And then he actually would have addressed me by name right away through the screen. I would have thought that was the craziest thing that's ever happened. And now that's just how entertainment is consumed, that sort of live immediacy to it. And to me, that's the most exciting thing. I might even be more excited about that than even video games. What content creators are making has changed everything, and it's such an exciting time to be part of it. So I largely work with them, trying to facilitate them, get them our games, make sure they have everything they need to play our games, whatever information they need whenever possible. And then just try to find people who are going to make the really, really good stuff that we can send our fans to, and who I think our fans would really like, and whose fans would actually enjoy our games. So it's a lot like PR in a lot of ways, but it's also a lot like more traditional marketing, and it's very much like community, and it kind of takes all these things that I've done and kind of merges them into one thing. But I wouldn't say any day that I have is like any day previous. Every day is very different.
So every day is a new challenge then?
Very, very much so. Very much so. In the extreme, oftentimes.
So just briefly then, how many content creators do you converse with, have conversations with on a daily basis? Because if it's a new challenge every day, I imagine that you're interacting with multiple content creators on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what's going on at any given time, where we are with a title just coming out, like whether there's going to be promotions. Like right now, a lot of what I'm doing is setting up things for Doom Eternal for next year. So it's a lot of things like that. Like, so if we have a title that's imminent, like coming along really, really soon, then a lot of working on launch plans, getting people capture sessions, that sort of thing, trying to just facilitate the launch. But then there's the other part of it, which is the more long-term relationships. There's some streamers that I've been working on with, like I said, since 2011, like since they were just starting out streaming and I was just starting out doing this, all of us like did the same, and I still work with them. I would say, there's several hundred that I have that I, try to keep regular contact with. Nobody really daily, just because that's not ever what's really called for. Although there's certainly some who, beyond just working with them on content and stuff, I've become legitimate, like a huge fan of their content. Like that's what I watch when I'm at home, because I just find them so fascinating and good.
I'm having trouble. So I'm trying to imagine you sitting at home, watching video on a tablet. Because obviously you deal with people on a daily basis.
Well, that's the thing is like, it's more, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if everybody's like this, but you have the people that you watch and you just want to see them succeed. You want to see them get better over time because you just love what they make. And there are there's some people who I watch. Some of them, they don't even really do video games at all, or very rarely do video games. And even then, don't do video games I work on. And that's fine.
The commentators the commentators more than streamers.
Or that I'm really watching them for the personality. And the truth of the matter is, for me personally, and even sometimes occupationally, I'm really there for the personality. Like, I'm not looking for the person who's best at the video game, or whatever like that. That doesn't matter that much to me. But if somebody has a personality and is really cool, like as far as like big streamers go, I'm a huge fan of Shroud. Like, I love the way Shroud plays games. I don't play any of those games. But as a person watching him, like, I can't. Like, I'm just terrible at it. But watching him, he has such like this personality. He just seems like this. You just like watching what he puts out. He's really interesting and laid back in this chill way. Things don't like turn into these big drama things, and it's really exciting watching him.
Well, Mixer don't give out exclusivity deals to people that are awful at streaming, do they? Really?
Right, and I think that's. I do. I think that's a great pickup for them, and very well deserved for him too. He does really, really good. And then there's like on Twitch. There's people who are a lot smaller who I just think are absolutely incredible. There's like a lot of the people I watch are actually smaller. They're not huge people. And I've been very, very lucky to get a chance to watch a lot of them grow and change as artists. Which
that's kind of funny that you put it that way, that they're artists, because it truly is a person. Content creation truly is a personality based medium, just like your music artists, just like your actors and things like that. So, that's that. Thank you for saying it that way. That's that's a perfect way to do it. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. No, I'm just saying, that's what it is. Like, this is an emerging artistic medium. It's an informational medium, it's an entertainment medium, but it's artistic. Like, there's a level to it that even if you're just sitting in front of your computer and doing commentary, the way you're lighting it, the way you present yourself, everything about that's still an art and technique. And I have so much respect for these guys too, and for these kids. Largely, a lot of them are, in their late teens, early 20s, into their 30s, but a lot of them are younger, have already started a company, have already started putting themselves out there, have created a brand, have an identity. Well, I'm like, I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. Like when I was in the late 90s, I was, working in a video store and hoping for the best. And seeing these kids build entire huge cottage industries it's really cool. That's a lot of work.
I just envision you. I just envision you like Randall from Clerks sitting in the video store.
Very much so. Very much so.
So, I'm going to steal a little bit of Neil's thunder. He did write this question, but this was a question that I wanted to ask, and you kind of segued perfectly into it here. You mentioned you've got Shroud and you've got Ninja, you've got all these big names, but you like to look for the smaller ones. Now, for people that put themselves out there, because, for our listeners, every single one of us that creates content puts ourselves out there. Our lives become you become part of our lives, and we become part of your lives, and we love that. But what are the things that really catch your eye that's not the technical aspect of it? What qualities of a content creator do you look for when you say, hey, this guy could probably talk about, this guy could talk about this latest game coming out, and I think he'd be a great fit. And then you're, of course, going to throw that to a community manager.
Yeah, part of that is it's part of it is data. And I won't lie, there's all sorts of data tracking stuff that I look at to see, looking at a streamer, let's use Twitch specifically for this example. Looking at a Twitch streamer and being like, well, what games have they played that have that the audience has really showed up for? Are those games that are in the same sort of genre or idea of what I'm representing at the time, and then try to find that. But and I've said this before too, is like data doesn't mean anything unless you're willing to put in the elbow grease. And the elbow grease for what I do is watching the streams, interacting with the streams. My things that I most look forward to, I look for streamers or influencers who have built really cool communities, who've really, been streaming long enough that they've created a community that even if they didn't show up for that stream, the community would show up to chat with each other. People who stream really need to think about that, because you have to think like a community manager. You are building a community, and you're building the community that shows up every day. And what I look for is, I want that cool community, that community that feels like they can have a conversation. You want to converse with them. Everybody's showing up and playing their part and having fun. That's the absolute biggest thing. Beyond that,
can I really quick just give a plug to every single one of our Padawans, as we call them,
there we go,
that come and talk to us in the Escape Podcast server. I mean, there's some of them are Patreons. We have our listener lounge. You guys make the week worth it. Mm-hmm. So this is my shout out to them, basically telling them that you guys are actually doing exactly what's needed to create a community. I tell people all the time, and Neil could back me up on this. This game would not be where it is without the community that it has.
Yeah.
For absolutely, for sure, for sure. Without the Star Wars IP fan base and the community around this game, this game would have gone the way of the dodo. Years ago.
No, I mean it's.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No. I mean that's the thing. I mean it really is. I've said this to streamers I worked with. I was like, the value is really is really 100%. It is your audience. Like, your audience is showing up because of you and because of the way you present, but they are the value. That's what I'm looking for, is your audience and you, like everything. But like, that is such a huge part of it. And the people who think about that and they really bring, I'm trying to think of people who I work with who, it's for bringing really good communities. And on Twitch, there's a team that I love working with called Crystalium. So there's like Dawn Whisper, Nega Oryx, who you might remember from earlier this year, who had been playing The Last of Us and the rabbit getting shot with the arrow. And then she was like, oh my God.
Yes.
So these are people who have, she has everybody at Crystalium, they have these they've created this incredible community of people who care about them, who care about what they're doing, who care about the conversations and all of that. And if you watch this, you're like, I just want to hang out here forever. Like, I just want to live in this chat because everybody is so cool and this is so much fun. One other streamer who I love working with, who I think everybody should follow because he's probably the most entertaining person on Twitch, in my opinion. One of them, certainly. The Spud Hunter. He's an Australian streamer, streams in a mask, has an underground base. It's the most amazing thing. I like his stream constantly. And also, I'm so happy, I'm so lucky I get a chance to talk to him on a regular basis because he's just a really inventive, thoughtful, interesting person who's making this incredible content and always trying to get better. And that is the thing that I'm always like, all right, I found somebody. It doesn't matter if you have 5 followers. If I go into there and I watch a whole bunch of your streams over a period of time, and I can see every single stream you getting better at something, or at least always experimenting, trying to make things better and better and better and better, that means you're a professional. That means you're a creative. That means you're somebody who cares about this, who's passionate about this. And it isn't about the fans or the fame or anything like that. It's about putting something in the world that you respect and care about. If you do that, you're family to me, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I will work with you forever.
I will. I do have to say that I cannot confirm or deny that our former Australian co-host Scotty McLaren is or is not the Spud Hunter. I cannot confirm or deny that.
Sounds right.
We do have a lot of Australian audience. I'll tell you that right now. The whole ANZGC alliance is pretty much in our server as well, and they're a wonderful group. So there's worldwide reach helps.
Yeah, and I will say, like, Australia, for some reason, pound for pound, they have some of the most incredible, inventive, interesting streamers in the world. Don't have necessarily the hugest audiences all around, but there are so many people in Australia who are doing this incredible work and really laying the foundation for what this medium can continue to be. I'm always excited finding a new Australian streamer. Always.
Well, Harpoons and Beer. He's is the name of his channel. His name is Heinze. He just covers Swaga right now. But man, he's up and coming. I'll tell you that right there.
All right.
Oh, I'm always looking for fellow content creators from Australia so that I can give them grief about cricket and rugby.
Oh, of course you are. So Nev is our English contingent. When I lost the Australian accent, I had to go get an English accent.
That's the important part.
And if you know anything, Sean, about England and Australia, we have a famous rivalry. Yeah. It's a friendly rivalry, but yeah, the banter. And the shimphing and the sledging that goes on between our two nations is quite legendary. And I pointed out that we recently thrashed them in the Rugby World Cup, and they all went quiet. Although saying that it had the shoe been on the other foot, they'd have been sledging me, and I'd probably be the one quiet in the corner. So, yes, the Australians know how to banter, so I can quite easily imagine there being a lot of very, very enthusiastic and vocal Australian content creators out there. I know a couple myself. I know Heinze, I know Torner, and obviously we've got our beloved ghost of Scotty.
Ghost of Scotty McLaren. Now, so let's look here at, let's pretend that we have somebody that you've been working with for a long, long time, and all of a sudden something negative happens in the community, something negative happens in the game, or whatnot. Neil, I'm going to throw it over to you for your second question.
Yes. So, Sean, basically, Paul has set up the premise there. So how does a content creator produce, constructively critical content and feedback on a game when it's going bad without coming across, being described like a hater or annoying to the devs and the producers because, they have legitimate concerns with a game and they want to provide feedback and constructive criticism to the community that you kind of hope and keep your fingers crossed that it'll get back to the game makers so that they can be like, yeah, okay, we're hearing you. We hear what you're saying, but one person over here has just gone, oh, that's crap, it's awful. And there's been unconstructive. And then there's a person over here that wants to be critical, but they want to do it in such a constructive way that, with logic and with reason and, with objective arguing. What does a content creator need to do for you to then perk up and listen? It's like, oh, hang on a minute. This guy over here, he has voiced and he has created in his content some very legitimate concerns, both from him and his community. We need to listen to this guy. What does a person need to do?
And I'm going to add in without getting blackballed.
Right.
Yes.
So that's a really good question because I deal with this a lot. I think everybody in this field does. And I think there's this general conceit that we don't, like, if somebody ever talks crap about us or whatever like that, we're immediately shutting them off, and that nothing could be further from the truth. Certainly there's always, no matter where you work, like if making a video game, because I can also say I've been on the development side of video games as well.
Right.
When you make a video game, it is your baby. Even if the game is terrible, you worked so hard for so long and gave up so much of your life and so much of your family, friends, everything. Like, people don't go into video games to make tons of money. Nobody does that. That's never the reasoning. Everybody gets in it because they want to create something. They want to put something into the world. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. And nothing has ever been put out that's perfect. That's literally not possible, especially with the complexity of today's games. Just not a possible thing.
Can I soundbite that for the future?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's just not like it's a thing. There's always like making video games is very much an organic process, right? Like it's an ongoing thing. Even when a game's released, there's patches, there's generally content that comes later, et cetera, et cetera. It's this constant thing. And it's something that you've given so much of your life to. It's not like you just went to work for 8 hours and then came home and forgot about it. You never forget about it. This is a thing you're creating. It's art you're creating with hundreds of other people. So people are going to take it personal. There's no getting around that. But my job isn't to take it personal. So for me, the way I look at things is, all right, are they talking about like a legitimate problem? All right. Are they talking about it from their experience as a player and how that affects their player? Because some people, I think, try to give feedback on a game as if they were designing it, whether or not they actually have any design experience or technical experience. And sometimes it's just like, oh, anytime I see anybody write the word lazy devs, all I wanted, like anything about games I have nothing to do with, whatever, anything. All I want to do is just jump through the internet and slap that person. And it's like nothing could be further from the truth. Like, everybody is trying their best. Nobody goes out of their way to try to make a bad game. It's just not a thing that happens. So I think for me, it's if people are giving constructive and respectful feedback about that. Everybody I know, that gets compiled and that gets sent along. Like, people, sometimes something will happen in a game and people will be furious and they'll be blah, blah, blah. But eventually that just becomes signal. It's really, angry feedback is really easy to ignore a lot of the time because it gets so emotional that it stops having anything factual or detail oriented in it. So there's nothing actionable, right? It's just, I hate you, you're stupid. And then you're like, okay, I don't know what to do with that. I have literally no idea what to do with that.
So it's more about separating the emotional arguments with the rational and logical arguments. So if someone's just kind of like ranting and, oh my God, for God's sakes, I did this and, I did everything that you told me to do and I did this in the game and I did that in the game and it still screwed me over and it's like, oh! So the red mist descends and they're thinking with their heart, they've got their heart on their sleeve and they're thinking with their heart and they're not thinking with their head. So you prefer it, so you're looking for people to kind of, wait for the red mist to clear, have a clear head and then go, right. So as a result of me doing X, Y happened and Y shouldn't really happen. So is there something that you can do about Y happening? And a lot of X's have happened within the community and Y has been, so that's what you're looking for, the more level head. You're looking for people to criticize with their head, not their heart.
I mean, I guess what I would say is like, think of whatever you do for a job. If somebody just comes in and just starts screaming at you, as opposed to somebody coming in and being like, I had a problem with my order, like this sort of thing, or like, calmly gives you like what's happening, what the issue is, how it affects them, and breaks it down. That is so much more, it's so much easier to deal with that. It's so much more actionable. Whereas if somebody's just sort of screaming about something, it already takes so much time to even find out what they're actually talking about. Whereas it's just broken down and it's just like, this change to this character class May I play that character class and I feel like this is unfair and for the following reasons. That's actionable. Like that's good feedback. That's something that somebody cares. That's something that developers can act on and care about. That doesn't feel like just being attacked. And it's just better information. Giving clearer, cleaner information is always preferable.
No, it's something that's actually happened to me several weeks ago. Some members of the community came to me and they said, look, this part of the game, this aspect of the game isn't functioning correctly. I'm joining this tournament, and then when the tournament begins, I've not been placed in a group. Could you raise some concerns? Could you do some content and, raise these concerns to CG? So I was like, half a dozen people had come to me with this problem. So I made a video. I went, there are people that are complaining. This is the issue that they've got. They've joined the tournaments. They've spent money and time and effort preparing all of their characters in preparation for this tournament. And then all of a sudden it starts and they're no longer in it. And, I made a video, I produced it. I wasn't, it hadn't affected me. The funny thing was the very next tournament, the exact thing that I reported on in that content then happened to me. So I spent time and effort preparing my characters for the next tournament, which, goes over a period of a week. And what happened? I wasn't included in the tournament. So I posted, I then posted the content that I made onto the servers, and it found its way onto the dev tracker. I found, a couple of weeks later, I'm looking at the dev tracker, following all of the various different issues that people raise, and there it was. And I put it down to the fact that, I'd done, a short, sweet 8 to 10 minute video. I'd been calm. I'd said, these community members have got in touch with me. This is the issue. This is these are the concerns that they've raised. And, oh, by the way, it also happened to me. And as a direct result, that video and that content and that issue found its way onto the dev trackers. And to be honest with you, it's not something that anybody's come back to me with as a problem any further. So I can kind of see where you're coming from regarding being cool, calm, and collected with regards to the criticism, and you guys kind of taking note, because I'm only a small to medium content creator. I've only got like 350 subscribers. So, I get, top end 100 people watching, bottom end 30 people watching. So it's good to know that you will listen to us if we are constructive in our criticism.
Absolutely. I mean, it's perfect. So when I was at Harmonix back in the day on Rock Band, I mean, people would come, like I used to, I was about to say joke with my wife, but I wasn't exactly joking, because I would get every week we'd put out DLC announcements about what was coming the following week. And that was largely my job. And I would immediately get death threats, like lots of them, because it wasn't Rush or whatever, like on this thing. And people would start writing these customer service emails to us about like how we were horrible and how dare we not pick their favorite band, but pick a different band. And I understand it. I get it. I'm a huge music fan, like to a point where it's annoying to the people around me. I absolutely get it. But people would write in these customer service emails, and I would have the rule I had with our community team, the people who worked with me and worked for me, was that we answer every one of those emails. And if it was just a long litany, we'd be like, well, maybe you could have put that a little bit better, but we're here, what you do, we're putting it down. And then almost every time where you just get those all capitalized letters, mostly swears, calling you all sorts of names, then you just respond with like, I understand what you're saying, blah, 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 but maybe you could, I am an actual person, but, I'll still pass along this thing. Almost every single time the person who wrote in would be like, oh God, I didn't think anybody would actually read this. And I get it. You're just trying to blow off steam. But if you are trying to blow off steam, it's probably not best to blow off steam in that way to the person that you'd like to, give constructive feedback to. Because again, it's not actionable. Like just screaming is not actionable.
And if I'm following your lead here, you don't want to blow off steam in all caps, if you will, to somebody that you want to create content for.
Definitely not. Yeah, and especially like, and I understand, like, there's even people who I work with, who, you know, or like streamers who are, and channel creators who I work with, who get disappointed, sometimes get pretty salty. And I don't actually have a problem with that as long as it doesn't get personal. Certainly with like YouTube and stuff, this has been pretty much on the record, is, you know, the saltier you get, the more intense, whatever, generally the higher viewership, because people just want to see this outrageous stuff like that. But I really think there's a lifespan on that, of the just doing negative and just crapping on everything. I really hope that there is more room for actual commentary and that sort of calm-headed thinking and analyzing.
At this point in the interview, we realized that we had already been talking to Sean for 30 minutes, so we cut the mic and asked him if he could stick around for another 30 minutes. He said yes, and the rest of our interview will be right after this on the Escape Pod Cast.
The Escape Pod Cast with Paul Anthony and Neil Andrew Ware.
Micaeus Modding Mayhem is the premier remodding service for the game that we all love, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. With some of the most affordable rates in the industry, Micaeus will rebuild your roster from top to bottom and give you consultation on where to go from there. Micaeus has a 100% satisfaction guarantee and lots of useful additional services, including a full cleanup of your mods, loadout pages, PvP plans, and more. Contact Micaeus today on Discord at all lowercase Micaeus number 0127. That's MIKAYAS number 0127. Or at micaeusmods@gmail.com. Micaeus Modding Mayhem, the official remodding service of the Escape Pod Cast.
Hey there, Escape Padawans. Everyone's favorite llama here to remind you that the Escape Pod Cast is on social media. That's right, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. So give us a like, give us a follow, and stay up to date on all things in-game and in the Escape Pod. Our account links are down in the description or on our Discord server in the Show Links channel. See you on the net!
This is the Jawa Mixmaster Specialist, Run DMV from Yavin 4, and you are listening to the Escape Pod Cast Content Creator Special. Utini!
Welcome back from the break on this edition of the Escape Pod Cast, and as we come back, Neil had a question about critical content creators.
I was just going to follow up with what you said there about the commentators. Like, for example, I follow and watch several commentators on YouTube, and I prefer the guys, to be honest with you, I prefer watching the guys that are more balanced. So it's not so much that they just do negative, it's that they do negative and they do positive. And I appreciate watching someone that, even if they don't like the game producers, they'll give credit where credit is due. So you've got one of my favorites is Yong Ye. I like watching him. He is both critical and he is both positive. So, off the top of my head, he's been positive about games like Death Stranding. He's been positive about games like the guys in Poland that are doing the one with Keanu Reeves. The name of the game fails to reach me. So I'm because I don't really play those games. I'm not one of those AAA game players. I like my old school. I like my Minecraft and I like my Halo. Yeah. But I like to listen to and I like to keep up to date. It's like current events.
I get it. Yeah.
I like to keep up to date with what's coming, what's new, what's the next big thing, what's the next Fortnite, what's the next Anthem, what's the next what's the next Fallout 76, what's the next Death Stranding, what's the next big thing coming along? Because I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, I'd like to move on, maybe later on down the line. I keep saying to myself, I definitely want to play the Jedi Fallen Order game when that comes out, because I'm a Star Wars fan. So, I'm out there constantly looking online to all of the content creators that I'm subscribed for, looking for little snippets of news.
Yeah.
So do you tend to give those little snippets of news to those commentators that are, performing reviews, and they're providing like punditry and commentary that are more balanced? Is that what you're looking for? Someone who is more balanced?
Yeah, I mean, if people have gone just basically full negative, which there's plenty of them, I'm not going to give a list, but I absolutely could. That would go on for days.
Let's not, just in case this crosses over.
No. Oh no, I would, and I wouldn't, because I like a lot of the people have. I hope that they do eventually get back to doing stuff that's more balanced. I've said this to streamers all the time. It's like, I don't mind if you're salty, just don't make it personal. Like if it's not personal, we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem at all. If you're not like stretching to make something negative because you'll get it more views, we don't have a problem. Not at all. Like, I know everything's not for everybody, and some people are going to like things more than others. I'm an adult. I can handle that. And if you can too, I think we're totally fine. But yeah, I'll send it out to people who could be critical about things, and certainly, without a doubt. I try to find the people who I think will enjoy things the most and make the most interesting content out of it. But and then what's the Dolly Parton line? Everybody wants happiness, nobody wants pain, but you can't have a rainbow without a little rain.
Yeah.
And that's content creation as well. Is like, if you're positive all the time, that's one thing. And I think there's some people who have pulled it off to an extent, but that's largely due to their personality, because I don't think there's anything dishonest about it. But I think, everybody likes things and doesn't like things, and then likes things for reasons and doesn't like things for reasons. And the good content creators know how to express that in good, healthy, constructive, interesting ways.
So kind of like keep the saltiness abstract, not visceral.
Yeah, as long as
keep it abstract, as and not on a visceral, personal level. So if you're going to be salty, it's like, oh my God, you've smitten me for the last time, EA. Not you smitten me for the last time, the individual developer that did. So kind of keeping it abstract.
Yeah, the more abstract, I think in a lot of ways, and I think we had, there's this one very, very good Twitch streamer who I enjoy, who's played some of our games before, and who I like, and he'll get really salty about certain cards in the game and that sort of thing. But it's all done in a very partially tongue-in-cheek and partially interesting. It's part of his thing. And as often as he'll get salty at the game, he'll get salty at himself for not doing well at the game, but in a really funny, interesting way. And that, again, that's balanced, right? Like he's gonna tend towards the salty, but he'll spread it around a little bit. And again, never makes it personal, which is such a huge point. Like it's like if it's say, let's turn it into working at a fast food restaurant. Like somebody comes in and is like, this burger is cold. Could I get a different burger? I'm really sorry about that. Or, or this burger is cold. And then you work behind the desk. You're like, yeah, I mean, I'm really sorry about that. We'll get you another burger. Where if somebody just comes in and is like, my burger's cold. You're the worst person ever. They're just screaming at you. You're like, oh yeah, there's going to be spit in this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's actually going to be, but what I'm saying is like your drive to actually help at that point. You're just like, wow, this is just like, I had nothing to do with this other than ringing up the, you know what I mean? So I think there's really, there's a separation there and how things are presented and how personal it is really very much plays into it.
Yeah. With the, this is our 30, what is this, 37th episode, Neil?
I think, 36,
and we've had so many we've had so many subscribers. You know, the numbers on our YouTube channel combined with the amount of people that podcast the show, just it's staggering to me. And a lot of them have said in the past, I love the fact that you're positive, but you're not afraid to go on a rant. And there used to be a weekly rant, Sean. There used to be a weekly rant on this show. And, you know, there has also been times when I've been upset the entire time. Change in a game, especially with a rebalance, a rework, and things like that, is not going to be taken happy by everyone. And there is and this is what I want to kind of get to. There is the vocal minority that tries to drown out the silent majority a lot of the time.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, that's a big one.
And while that is, the vocal minority can start affecting the silent majority, because all they're hearing is somebody saying this game is broken, this game is becoming asinine in the way that they're doing things. So if you know, as a game player yourself, what would you do, or what do you do when you see a community heading in that direction? What would your advice be, A, to the community, B, to the content creator, and let's play a little bit of hardball here, Sean, to your own company?
I guess I would use, for one thing, I'm going to use what I used to say when I was at Harmonix back in the day, is that I looked at myself and the rest of the community team. I said that we are like ombudsmen for newspapers. I don't think that's necessarily a job that exists at most newspapers anymore. But it was the fact checker, right? So you represent the newspaper to the people, but you also represent the people back to the newspaper. You kind of exist in this middle point, and your job is largely to translate in some ways, I saw as our job as the community team was to communicate in the clearest possible way what the developers were going for to the community, and to take what the community was saying and distill it down into something that was meaningful to and actionable to the developers. That was the biggest thing ever. And you can see this, you could definitely see. And I think probably every company at this point does sentiment reports, and all of those sorts of things. But I would say that everybody just needs to try to remember, and I don't just mean this because it makes everybody's day easier and makes it so that when you go home, you're like, okay with things. It's not just that. I just also think it's the best way to get actual real results in this world is if everybody treats each other like they're other people, and they might be other people that they disagree with, but they're still other people. And if we can have normal conversations as people talking to people, we're going to do a lot better there. And what comes out of it from the content creators, from the community, from the developers, across everything, it's going to make more sense. That's just what because no developer is out there being like, ha ha ha, this is going to piss everybody off. I can't. I mean, if they do, that's probably not.
No. I mean, a developer. No, I wouldn't say a developer is going to think like that.
Yeah.
But obviously, developers have bosses. The developer might not be thinking like that, but the developers' bosses might be thinking, well, we're going to do this, and then that's when that vocal minority comes in and starts kicking the developers in the teeth.
Yep.
And it should be, well, hang on a minute, whoa. what you dislike, you have valid reasons for disliking, but you're aiming your anger at the wrong people. You know, the developers, they just made the game. You know, they have bosses. You know, if you don't like something that's happened, then, you know, direct your constructive criticism, whether it be vitriolic or abstract. At least aim it in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, and that there's certainly some truth to that, and I think it's so hard because it's also sometimes where I wonder is like, I know what it's like even personally to really, really be involved in something and really, 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 really care about it as a fan, really, really care about it, and then for it to not necessarily serve me anymore and kind of go in a different direction, and how sort of hurt and rejected you can feel about that. But sometimes I think people need to weigh how much this matters in the overall aspect of their life, or whether it's time to move on to some other things. Because I've seen that too, where people get really, really irrationally angry at a game. And it might even be vaguely about a real thing, but you're like, this is very, very angry. And then sometimes it's just they're going through some stuff. I try to be really, respectful of that too. But yeah, it's God, it's so hard. This whole industry is really hard.
No. Well, we Paul and I went through a similar thing last week. We both went off on one during the recording segments of the show because obviously we do content about Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and they're produced by CG. So we both went off on CG's lack of communication with the community, more from a more personalized point of view. They do their Q&As and they do their other forum posting stuff. But we were like, could you talk to us for a bit? You're doing this stuff. Can you come and talk to us? No sooner had we done that, but a show, so a fellow content creators, the Galactic War Report, actually had an interview with one of the top guys, one of the main guys at CG, and it was an open and frank discussion, and we were like, oh wow, okay, brilliant. So even though we'd had a rant, it was like they preemptively heard it. They looked in their crystal ball, went, yeah, Paul and Nev aren't happy. We need to interview somebody in the we need to do an interview with somebody in the community, and answer some tough questions. So yes.
And I think that's important. I think it's important for developers to do that as well. Like, I think that to address things head on whenever possible. And I'll be honest, working at lots and lots of places over lots of times, from small, tiny companies to really, really big ones, the more, how do I put this? When I worked at an indie company and there were 7 of us, we could respond to everything immediately, right? Because there was 7 stakeholders, and they were all in the same room. And we're an indie company. We can kind of do whatever we want. That's whatever. The larger kind of a company gets, and the more people who are involved in an intellectual property, in a brand, etc., the longer responses are going to take, because there's a lot of people who have a lot occupationally, monetarily, etc., invested in that brand, and they
lots of fingers in the pie,
right? And they need to have a say, right? Like, you can't just be like, well, I've decided to say whatever I'm gonna, because there's a lot of it's a bigger organization, right? It's not just 7 people sitting in a room. Generally it's global. It takes time. And to really craft something that also works internationally, et cetera, these are things that take time, require a great amount of care to do correctly, so that, what's being said is clear and understood, and is approved of by by enough people, by the people who are stakeholders in this and do have ownership over different parts of it. And, I can understand why a lot of people get really, really frustrated with that. It can be really, really frustrating. Nevertheless, it's also understandable. Like, if you had ownership over something and then somebody was just like, I'm gonna do whatever, you probably wouldn't be that happy with it either. So it's just part of the process.
So let's. I know we're not going to be talking about the games that you that you represent. But let's say that there is this game breaking glitch. All of a sudden, people start, let's just say, duplicating bobby pins in Fallout 76. Okay, we'll just use bobby pins for an example, and these bobby pins become of all of a sudden very, very what's the word I'm looking for here? They become very valuable. Okay. How are you? How long does it take you from the point of you being notified that these bobby pins are causing all this mayhem in a game to taking the servers down and removing the bobby pins from inventories and things like that?
Oh no, I didn't understand what you were talking about, but I get what you're talking about there, Paul. So, are you do you mean like from the perspective of so that issue just reared its head, and a content creator produces content on it? How quickly do you action the issue raised by that that pin thing? How quickly does it get actioned?
That's almost an unanswerable answer. And it'll feel like I'm dodging it. I swear to God, I'm not. What it is, depending on the game, depending on the engine, depending on the pipeline, depending on the severity of the problem, depending on how much the problem relates to core things in that engine that could take for instance, any game done with a particular engine, let's say it's the Unreal Engine, just as a point of reference, and be like,
and we're not saying this is 76. This is just hypothetical.
Right, I'm just talking about hypothetical things here. But let's just say you have like a game that's made in a particular engine, and for the thing I'm going to say, let's just say it's the Unreal Engine, because that's such a huge engine that a lot of people use. There are even core issues to that engine. Every engine is going to have core issues to it, because every engine is a series of compromises to get what you're going for. And you try to go for compromises that are more to the strengths of what you're trying to make, et cetera. But there's always going to be certain things. And some bugs that might come out that might look like super easy to fix bugs are actually crazy, where you'd be like, well, why is it every time I talk to this character, they say what they're saying twice? Well, it's like, well, because there's this actual issue when certain things are done, it triggers this thing. And then and to fix that bug, that could actually take 2 or 3 years of just like getting into how we designed the entire sound bank. So as far as actual, it really changes. Every game is different. Every bug is different. I know from personally, if I see that happen, or if that's reported or whatever, say to me, if one of my streamers has an issue with Quake Champions, something happened, what about this bug? I write it up, get as much information as I can from that person, and then I send that directly along to the dev team. And I'm not on the dev team. I can't jump into the engine and start digging around at it myself, but everybody is working their butts off to try to make everything as good as possible all the time. So, but yeah, but Sean,
but Sean, why would it take 2 to 3 years to go through that? Says the community.
Have you ever seen a code base where people didn't leave comments inside of it while they were programming it? I have.
I have seen some pretty long scripts before. So it does depend on the script, the length of the script, and the amount of code in the script, and finding the code in the script that's causing the bug.
Yeah, and even that it can go beyond that. It could be okay, so let's say it's not about games. Let's move to houses, right? We all like living in houses. Houses are great. But you'd be like, well, why can't I fix the foundation? Why do I have to fix the entire foundation to my house? I just have one brick. That's a problem. And you're like, well, that brick is actually a load-bearing brick with, a bunch of other bricks that touch it. You wouldn't even necessarily think that, but if we pull that brick out, the whole house is going to collapse on top of it. And we really need to do like all this other stuff, like strengthen the house from other things so we can move it to, you know what I mean? So
no, I get the analogy. If someone's playing the game, they're creating their content, they come across a bug, the content creator reports it to you, you go and look at it and you're like, yeah, okay, the foundational script and code that this bug is in is 2,000 pages long.
Right.
And it's going to take us X amount of weeks to pore over the code in these pages of script in order to find where the line of code is that's causing the bug.
That's correct.
Right.
Or even it might even be this known issue, right? Like I'm going to use Let's Quip, the game because then I'm just talking about a game I myself worked on, made. It was my design. I worked on my partner's character. But like, just to give because this I can actually, because if for any of the games where I work, if anybody will report something, nobody's letting me into that code base. That's not happening. And honestly, I'm fine with that. And it's probably the best for anybody. I'm a terrible programmer. I could barely, I'm just terrible at it. So, but like for our game, there was little stuff. It's like, well, why can't this happen? It's like, well, for that to happen, and this was just a very simple mobile title where two players would go into a match. Each would be given a random word from a bank of like 2,000 words. And then each people had to write jokes about why their word was better than the other person's word using a bunch of things. And then it would go out to other players who would then have to vote on it to get enough energy to play in their own matches. Very simple loop. Very simple. There's not even a whole lot of like game mechanics in there because so much of it is the way things are scored is by other players. Other players are the judges. But there was such like little things that like, it was like, well, why is this isn't kerning right? Or this thing is like, well, yeah, it's because that's the font. And if we change the font, that's going to be weeks of work to go through and rechange everything about every single layout because suddenly this font is an extra pixel wide. It's like little things can actually be these huge problems simply due to the overall wild complexity of how video games are made. Nothing is simple. Nothing in video games is simple and can take a long, long time simply because of that complexity. And it's very easy to forget that. What's that?
Except for Pong. Pong was simple.
It was. Yeah. But still, probably, like, can you imagine how many decks of punch cards were required to program Pong in the first place? Like, the first version in the 50s? Like, that's still, like, you're still doing, like, somebody who's normally, like, an astrophysicist programmer spending 2 weeks building a ping pong simulator. Like, and that's like a super genius making a very, very simple game. Which I would never claim to be a super genius. So like, yeah, that's the thing. It's always going to be, it's the high technical aspect of it and all the little things. Anybody who goes in programs a little bit is going to be like, oh yeah. No, that's, yep. This is all way more complicated than you'd ever think it is.
Would you like to play a game?
Yeah, right. Global thermal nuclear war, please.
Yep. So I bought a T-shirt for my wife about that like 20 years ago. I bought a T-shirt for now my wife that was just said, "Would you like to play a global thermonuclear war?" And it had like the little icons from the movie
from War Games.
Now I'm showing
That's awesome.
my age. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this: you probably bought the shirt back when it was re-released. Back when I was working for, get ready, Funko Land.
Oh, I remember Funko Land. I used to go to Funko Land all the time.
Exactly.
Wow.
Sean, we said we were going to do 30 minutes. We're coming up on an hour here. I may have split this into 2 different segments. I'm not sure yet, but the one thing that I do want to make sure happens, tell people about Let's Quip. Is it still available and how can they find it?
They can't. This is a game that no longer exists. Worked on it with my partner at Firehose Games, Sherith Bott, for a couple of years when I was at Firehose Games. The entire time we were working on it, basically from the moment we were writing code for it and doing the design, it was online on like a web page, and then you could play it through Facebook and mobile. I miss it desperately. It's the community that played that game, though small, was some of the funniest, smartest, most interesting people I've ever met, and I miss them desperately.
Well, I mean, it's. I apologize that it's not available anymore, but maybe just talking about it has inspired somebody to say, "Hey, let's do Let's Quip the Revival," and maybe they'll get in touch with you about it.
That sounds good. I would love to. I'd love to see what they do. It was something that I guess I could to that I could speak to the personal. Like when you make a game, it's very, very personal. To me, there's nothing that I enjoy more than sitting with a group of people and just making them laugh and them having them make me laugh and just having a good time with people. And that was that game. That was distilled down. So it's 100% how I feel about the world. So when you make a game, it's really, really personal. And I'm glad people liked it for the time that they did. I wish it had been a bigger hit, but nothing's promised.
Well, I mean, your story of how you've gotten to today, Sean, is immensely powerful. And I strongly recommend people look up Sean Baptiste and find out about you, because your passion for video games and where you've been and where you're going and where you will go is monumental in the life experiences that you've had. And I, for one, am thankful to be able to call you a friend. And I really thank you for that.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate it.
Got a bit of a bromance going on here.
Whatever, Neil. With that being said, guys, check out Sean on Twitter at Sean the Baptiste. He's very, very interactive with everyone, and I hope that his experience has given you a little bit of a look into the world of content creation, the do's and don'ts. And Sean, thanks for coming on the program.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on here. Oh, thank you. It really has been awesome. It's been great talking to you guys.
And originally in the close, I had said stay tuned for a fourth segment, but as you guys all know, stay tuned for a fifth segment. We are live with The Bridge coming up right after this break on the Escape Pod Cast.
The Escape Pod Cast with Paul Anthony and Neil Andrew Ware.
Micaeus Modding Mayhem is the premier remodding service for the game that we all love, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. With some of the most affordable rates in the industry, Micaeus will rebuild your roster from top to bottom and give you consultation on where to go from there. Micaeus has a 100% satisfaction guarantee and lots of useful additional services, including a full cleanup of your mods, loadout pages, PvP plans, and more. Contact Micaeus today on Discord at all lowercase Micaeus number 0127. That's MIKAYAS number 0127, or at micaeusmods@gmail.com. Micaeus Modding Mayhem, the official remodding service of the Escape Pod Cast.
Did you know that if you signed up to become a Patreon, you could get tons of rewards? Force Ghost Scotty could do a roster review for you. Neil Andrew Ware could share Grand Arena tactics. Or Paul could even help you get maximum stars in Geonosis Territory Battle. And you even get access into the after show. Sound good? Sign up to be a Patreon today. For as little as $2 a month, you could unlock a ton of potential content and also get closer to the hosts. Head to patreon.com/The Escape Pod to sign up.
The Escape Pod Cast. The Bridge.
Oh, Neil.
Yes, Paul.
That has been a marathon of emotion, of passion, and basically, information that I think any content creator could possibly want, and it was my honor to bring it to you guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it went very, very well. I mean, we covered as many bases as we could have possibly covered.
We really did. And, they covered a lot of bases in another thing, and now this is where we get back to talking about the whole... the game that inspired this show, Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. We had a question and answer today. And
yeah, my God, was it a good one?
Yeah, I was both encouraged and taken back a little bit. It sounds like they're saying we hear you. They didn't say it exactly, but you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna ring the bell. I'm gonna say, you know what, CG. You answered the tough questions. I'm excited for that. I'd like to ask you some more. Your invite is always there. But you did a great job between that and Galactic War Report last week. I'm optimistic, Nev. I don't know. What are you thinking?
I was surprised at some of the questions that they allowed. I really, really was. I mean, I was listening to Finn and Ranger go through the Q&A live because they started doing it live at about 3:30, and they were doing it in a joking manner. Finn was pretending to be SB Crumb and sounding like the Wicked Witch of the West, and Ranger was like doing CG Top Hat but sounding more like Mr. Hat from South Park, and Ranger was like. You could tell there was a hint of surprise there. It's like, are these really the questions? Because when I was listening to Finn ask these questions, I'm thinking to myself, he's taking the mickey. He's messing around, isn't he? Because you heard that first question, and it's like, what does your community manager do all day? Because it certainly doesn't seem like he's managing the community. And I'm thinking to myself, that can't be a question. There's no way they would allow that. But they did, and then. Bang, the next question, is the game dying? As in, are you losing interest and running out of ideas for the game? As a lot of people are thinking the game is dead in the water and going nowhere. And I'm like, they've really let these questions through. These are questions that people want to ask, but, Q&As tend to have, the softballs, don't they? They don't tend to have those, questions that we kind of ask but feel we'll never get an answer on. So I was pleasantly surprised, I must admit.
Yeah, I mean they referenced the appearance on GWR. It's it really is entirely a. They labeled this whole thing general questions, but it was more like taking the hardball.
Mm-hmm. It's like, taking a shot. They were taking a shot in the mouth, basically. It's like, okay, look, we've got all these questions. They don't expect us to put them in the Q&A. So let's put them in the Q&A. Let's shut them down before they start whinging and moaning and going, oh, you didn't answer any of the hard questions. It's like, okay, fine, we'll answer them all this time. I'm not saying that they fully answered them all. But the mere fact that they allowed some of these questions, through, was, it kind of gives me a little bit of hope for the next Q&A and the potential for, maybe they go on RSG, maybe they come back to us, maybe they do the Galactic War Report, regularly. I mean, as much as I'd love to have them on here, if they started doing something like that on a month-by-month basis, I mean, God, that would be awesome.
It's just the fact that they're willing to talk to the community that I will take that as the win.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, definitely. So what was were there any questions in there that kind of stuck out to you? Are there any that you really, really liked?
Honestly, for me, it's always the quality of life stuff. They did talk about will it be possible for guild officers to give orders before territory battles start? It's they said it's a tricky piece of work, and as you remember, in the talk with Sean, it could take 2 to 3 years because it could be a load-bearing brick that allows you to get in, that opens the gate to get into the attraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we understand a little bit more about the script now. Although then, I think I did then point to the follow-up question, which would then be, well, where was the QA? Where was the quality assurance that allowed something like that to be incorporated into load-bearing script for the game? Why is it such a huge load-bearing script, and why is it so important, and why does it take so long? But at least we know from a ground-up point of view now, we can kind of look at the responses and go, okay, so you've said that one's going to take a long time. We kind of understand because it's load-bearing script, and in order for you to add stuff to the game in that area, you need to rip the entire foundation out and go over the whole thing again before you then start adding, new code, which is going to be the new part of the game. I think a perfect example of that would be GW. We've always thought that GW would be the perfect place for them to create a sandbox mode for us in the game. For all we know, the code and the script for Galactic War could be 10,000 pages, and it could be thousands and thousands of lines of code, and in order to change GW or duplicate the script for GW and then create a sandbox mode could literally take 12 to 24 months. Knowing that from an abstract point of view, having that pointed out by Sean, it would be great if we could get the devs from Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes to say, hey, this is the case. It would take us 12 months to rewrite the code in the script for Galactic War to give you the sandbox you want, and that's why we haven't done it. That's the kind of... You see, now we know a little bit more. We can be a little bit more precise with our questions regarding QOL. Because you like your QOL. So when a QOL question like, let's take the second one, for example, for a QOL update, can we please get a tag or locking mechanism that allows us to earmark gear for future use on a particular tune?
It'd be nice. I agree. It'd be nice, but that's
nice,
part of this game. That's part of this game is saying, okay, should I really craft this mini stun gun, or should I wait to craft the gold stun gun? It would that. To lock it to a certain character, to allocate it there, defeats the purpose of the gearing system in my mind.
Well, and that's why so many there are always so many different variations on what people want in the QOL section of the developer Q&A. There's always something new there, and there's always something different that somebody wants changing to the game. That's what makes the QOL such an interesting aspect of the Q&A.
Yeah, and the last question. Did you see the last question that they answered?
Yes. Could the dev team add statistics to the GA board so I can see how teams did on That's the last one on the QOL.
Well, the QOL. I'm talking about all the way down. I honestly think this is also a QOL thing. They asked, how is the Vulture droid able to scale and keep up with power that Relic 7 is giving to other pilots? We talked about this,
Yeah, we did talk about this at the start, yeah.
And their answer for this is that they had to be very careful that a max-out crewless ship wasn't dominant in terms of how much was invested into it. For example, melted face against non-relic enemies. And they said that even though it's a fine line, everything is working as intended for those. So in my opinion, I think that they would not, if it all of a sudden became face melting in the other direction, that they wouldn't hesitate to rework a crewless ship.
Well, that would definitely bode well for new adopters of the game, people coming into it, because from a farming point of view, for someone with a new account, I would much rather farm for a crewless ship that's going to be as good as a crewed ship, because then I don't have to farm the crew member and the ship. I just have to farm the ship.
Yeah.
Someone who's been playing for quite some time has already farmed a lot of the people, farmed a lot of the ships, farmed a lot of the crew, and it's more about either getting them to 7 stars or increasing the gear level to a 12 or a 13 so that they can start relicking the character. But if you were starting from scratch, let's say 12 months from now, somebody new coming into the game, and we've got a half a dozen ships that do not have crew, it might then, that might then be part of a pillar system. Farm these ships. They're just as good as ships with crew in, but you don't have to farm the ship and the crew. You just have to farm the ship.
Yeah. I mean, totally. You love your pillars.
I do. Yeah, I kind of love my pillars. I like the pillar system.
Heinze in the room says he's annoyed that his question wasn't answered in the Q&A. And he says, with hindsight, are you still comfortable with the decision to set the unlock level of Boss Anakin at 5-star? And they actually... They kind of answered it. Yeah. Here's a real question. Are you considering changing the epic confrontation? But by the way, they spelled it confrontation. Unlock from 5 to 7 stars, and they said, we're not considering the change. Epic confrontation events reward 5-star unlocks. And we don't have any other confrontation scheduled at the time, but we will likely come back to the format in the future. So they kind of did answer that. I think they're okay with getting these ultra endgame characters and finding a way to deplete a resource that can be hoarded. Once Malevolence hits, I am not hiding the fact that I am going to finally unleash the gates of Guild Event Token Mark II.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, so you're going to stop hoarding?
I'm going to stop hoarding when it comes to when Malevolence drops. I absolutely am, Neil.
Oh, excuse me.
It's okay.
I had a frog in my throat.
And you are not sounding echoey this time. And we want to apologize. We're working on... He has different settings from when it's OBS and when it's my system that we use. So I apologize for the echo. I did not trap Nev in a cave. It just came out that way because of some mic placement, and it sounds like we fixed it for the live segment. So for the naysayers and the people that are just going to make comments on the web, you know what? I know. Okay, there we go. I got that out of the way.
So yes, some really good, some interesting. The question about releasing the legendary events is always open. That came up again, so we got a slightly different answer on that one, because I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more specific. So obviously, just to remind people of the question, what is your timeline for making it easier for new players to catch up, e.g. releasing legendary events as always open, rather than calendared, as has been alluded to in recent Q&As? And CG Sven said our next title update is going to have 2 new features that mark a significant step towards this future, especially in conjunction with some content lifecycle changes we'll be rolling out at the same time. So they are prepared. The next title update is going to have new features that are going to step up this change. And then CG Cyanides says this is something we have been thinking about for a while and have a plan to address. There are a lot of questions in this Q&A about New Players Guild recruiting new players, and what I can say is that we totally agree with the feedback. We have some plans that you will be hearing about on how we address new players and getting their collections to a state that makes them eligible for more Elder content and guild involvement. So it's sounding like, obviously they haven't been specific, but they have alluded to the fact that in the next title update, they are incorporating features that will be a significant step towards the always open legendary events. And I must admit that is definitely something that I am looking forward to. And regarding guild recruitment, it's massive from a guild point of view. That is absolutely massive, because if any legendary event can be done at any time, recruiting, somebody can not have JTR, for example. Maybe they haven't got JTR and it's an intermediate guild, and that intermediate guild's like, well, we kind of need you to have a JTR squad so that you can, do phase 1 so that we can get prepared to do Heroic Sith. Because it might be a guild that hasn't yet started Heroic Sith. So that person is then thinking to himself, well, the event's open. Give me a month, let me join and I'll start farming for that immediately. And then I can start gearing those characters up immediately. Solves the problem. Whereas before you would have to wait, 2, 3, 4 months just to get, the characters ready and the ancillary characters ready in order to have a JTR squad good enough to be able to do phase 1 of the Heroic Sith. But now, if they, once they roll this always open out thing, it's going to make recruiting for guilds so much easier.
So let's. I want to tackle one that has a lot of the what's considered the big content creators quite angry. Do you watch YouTube videos by? Do you use? Yeah, the person typed weird. Do you watch YouTube videos by from the community? Are you aware of the growing sentiments they're expressing on behalf of the community? Do those types of community input factor into any of your design decisions? And Top Hat, who was just recently on GWR, right? He says, yeah, we've watched them for sure. Their sentiments largely mirror those in the community and don't fundamentally add much to the conversation beyond what we see in Reddit and the forums. We look to the concerns of the community, not specific personalities.
See, I find that, I'm not happy with the end of that. To compare the spoken word, because that's what CG Top Hat is doing here. He is comparing the spoken word to the written word, because that's what Reddit and the forums are. There is no emotion. There's no feelings. You can't tell if someone's being sarcastic, if someone's being ironic, because it's the written word. You can, however, get all of that from listening to somebody say something as opposed to write something on Reddit. So when they say that, that YouTube and the content creator, the video, the audible and the visual community largely mirrors those of the community in Reddit and the forums, I would really, really quite vociferously disagree with that, because they're two completely different animals. They really are two completely different animals. One is a written blog and the other is a vlog for all intents purposes. And, sitting and speaking and saying your piece into the camera is a lot different from typing it down and writing it out. And perfect example of this is my first post on Reddit. Everybody thought I was a shill. Everybody thought that I was a secret. It was a secret CG account. And then I talked about it on in one of my videos, and I was able to add, context and, a little bit of emotion and a little bit of feeling to it, and it came across completely and utterly different. So when they say it's the same and it mirrors, I completely disagree. Sometimes Reddit is an absolute dumpster fire. We know this. And the stuff that gets written on Reddit and written in the forums, there's no way that gets repeated on YouTube and on Twitch by content creators.
Well, I'm gonna spin this the other direction because Cubs fan Han, who we know he's a good friend of ours, he screen capped that answer and then tagged Arnold and saying, well, we're not fundamentally adding to the conversation. Time to hang it up and call it quits. Now, I know Cubs fan Han is being tongue-in-cheek there. But in some of the replies, he gets in some of the replies to people replying to that, he gets a little bit, he throws the salt that we talked about with Sean. He says...
Is he throwing a bit of shade?
Yeah, because he said, perhaps you're right, perhaps not. Either way, it's dismissive of what we do. Shouldn't surprise many, though, considering that Capital Games cutting ties with creators except for a podcast or two. He threw a dagger at me. Cubs at 2 Brute.
At 2 Brute, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes down to it, I'll say this, Cubs. You got very... I'm gonna, an open letter to Cubs here. You got a little bit down on the game. They're not mad at you. They're mad at the continual push of the whole thing that goes with, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do these different things. You do a great job, Cubs. You really do. And I love the content that you put out, and I'm excited for what you're going to do in Fallen Order. But, buddy, throwing that shade out there, that's not exactly, extending the olive branch.
Well, I mean, I will take the devil's advocate approach here. Okay, I'll take the devil's advocate approach here, and I will say that it is a little bit of turnabout when you think about it, because I have abstractly thrown shade outward regarding people who, I've done it in the Escape podcast for kids. When I've talked about the naysayers and the doom merchants, that talk about a game that's dying and, it's a new month, let's do another video about the game dying. So I've thrown some kind of abstract shade out there myself. Maybe this is just, good old-fashioned turnabout.
All I'm saying is that, if you're gonna title a video, "Is this game dead in the water?" to get clicks, then don't expect somebody to be all excited to come to you and tell you all about the new light side territory battles. You know what? I've gotten a little vitriolic about EA itself.
Yeah, but that's not exactly hard, is it?
It may not be hard, and I still say pay the darn developers. Don't worry about these Christmas bonuses. Stop looming things over their heads with pink slips. Let them develop with guidance, not mandate. I will not step away from that. That is what I will never, ever, ever, ever step away from. But when it comes to, CG, I think they're doing a great job. Keep it up. Just listen more. You made a great step with this week's Q&A. I love the fact that we did pretty much find out that the whole game updates are now slated for December, for March, for June. So, we're getting more information if you actually read it.
I think it I mean, go back a week, literally, go back a week, and, it had been 6 months since we'd had some, genuine, heartfelt communication, sit-down interviews, sit-down communications, that kind of thing. And then, within the period of a week, we've had, a QA that was worth something, and, a sit-down with CG Top Hat and some fellow content creators in the Galactic War Report. So, those two things, I just hope it continues. I really do. I genuinely hope it continues. And here's the thing: if we kind of, it's a bit like sometimes people don't like heaping praise. I mean, I know a couple of content creators, not Star Wars game related. There's the quartering, and there are some people that there are some game developers that he really doesn't like. But when they do something right, he sits there, he puts a face on like he's been slapped around a couple of times, and he's like, right, I don't like doing this, but I have to give credit where credit is due, and this developer has done the right thing. So I think what we need to do is kind of give the necessary credit and praise to CG for what they've done this past week, in the hope that the praise and the credit that we give them kind of continues that good faith, and they do more interviews with other content creators. I mean, the one that strikes me to mind, I know I mentioned RSG, but could you imagine CG Top Hat on a show like what is it, Kyle and Dagadoo Hollywood? Can you imagine those? Can you imagine that? I mean, something like that. How awesome would that be? Or if they were to do, a one-on-one with Xylo, or if they were to do something with It's Just Ian, like a one-on-one, something like that would be really, really good, because you would get different questions, would get different perspectives from different content creators, because we had CG Carry On, and now CG Top Hat has done the Galactic War Report. I'd like to see them do something else next month, and the month after that, and the month after that.
I want to get Crumb back on to debut a puzzle.
Yes, I would, and I think we've got first dibs on Crumb with a puzzle. So if we've got, if we're calling dibs on Crumb with a puzzle, then other content creators should get to call dibs with other guys. Maybe Bulldog can get Eric on, or something like that. The possibilities are endless, but it ain't gonna happen if all we do is bitch and moan on this thing. What's happened this week? We must give them the necessary credit for it, and praise. Even if you don't like CG, you've got to give them the praise, you've got to give them the credit, and then hopefully, the next week will be the same.
You don't have to give them the praise. You don't have to give them the praise. What you need to do is you need to be honest. And I hope that we've always been that. I really do. The whole show opened my eyes a little bit to what they're looking for. I'm glad that we interviewed Sean, but I mean, honestly, Nev, it really, this entire past almost 3 hours, we're coming up on 3 hours now for this show.
Yeah.
Has been
a long one.
Has been a glass case of emotion, a roller coaster of wonder, if you will. And I look forward to the next one with you, man. We're always, we're always ready to talk the Star Wars,
Oh yes,
as some people have put. And
don't forget we're doing a collab with
we're going to be doing the
Thadeous soon.
With Thad.
Going to do another collab with Thad. That's going to be a lot of fun.
So, the people that I would like to make sure that get thanked here is our Patreons, who week in and week out help. They help shape the show just by chatting with us. And even if you're not on Discord, put that in your notes, and I'll email you personally if you have some ideas for the show. Put that in your notes that you want to talk to me. I'll email you. I have no problem in that. But I do have to thank our Patreons, Tenpool, BCM, B-Couts, Danku, the Eternal Patreon, Sobi, Gubatine, Dan O, we got Patchy, we got Dagger, we got Plasma, we've got Buzzsaw, E-Grace, Ghost, the Hod, Heinze, Apropos, we got JJ Manners, we've got John K, we've got Sir Boss, who I'll tell you right now, he is absolutely another one of the eternal Patreons. Caden Ace, Curtis Blow, DPK, we still love you. Maverick, Ollie, our own fighting drunk, we love him as well. The Llama, she appears on the show and she supports the show. Thank you, Llama. We got Savage Diva and Uber Witch, Nev.
Ooh.
The two of them got married this past week. So congratulations to Uber and Savage.
Yes, Uber and Savage. Of course, my apologies, Savage. I do recall you saying that you were getting married. I had my kids with me at the time, though, so please forgive me. But yeah, congratulations to Savage Diva and her. I have no doubt, lovely wife.
So yes. The fun part, I'm gonna mention this, is that the post on Reddit last week about how do you swagga up a wedding, that started as a conversation inside our guild chat, and then one of our members just took it to Reddit, and it produced some hilarious stuff, like giving everybody Malik shards as they walk in the door, but then taking them away halfway through the reception.
Yeah, no, that'd be funny.
We also have to thank the Zed, who once again, they work here, but they support here. I'm floored by each and every single one of you. And the person that opened this week's show, Urzatron, thank you for your support. Thank you for your content. And you know what? We're always here, and we're always glad to be the warm-up act for the hall when GAC lands on a Friday.
Oh, yes, we are. Just no pickles out, please. No pickles.
No pickles. No pickles, yes. Save your for pickles for RSG.
Yeah. Save it for the hall and save it for RSG.
I'm currently talking with a few content creators. We had Xanatos. I always say the name wrong. Xanatos. He's going to be doing a Child's Play charity stream next week, so we may have him on next week. And also, one other thing is that I do want to mention that our very own good friend and one-shot co-host, Heinze, is going to be starting a series tomorrow called Behind the Screen, and I'm excited for that.
Ooh.
We talk about content creation. He dropped the information to us earlier. You know what? He's going to be creating content. Good for him. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, definitely.
And Heinze, I know you missed some of the show. Go back and listen to the entire Sean interview, because that is going to help you immensely along the way.
Oh my God, now I'm sneezing.
It's all right, Nev. It's all right. Well, I will save you from your sneezes, and I think it's time that we get out of here. What do you think?
I think I couldn't agree with you more, mate. We've had a very long night.
Yeah, we do, and I still have to edit this and upload it all. But with that being said, thank you so much, guys. Stay awesome, and Nev, push the button.
You got it, mate. Ta-ta for now, folks.